computer's working weird today. Ah, da, 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 da. Okay. Yeah, so I've just been doing my journal off and on all day. I'm not sure if that's. Yep, there we go. Nope, I'm not gonna proofread that. That's just gonna be terrible if it's terrible. Okay. Let's see. Okay, let's figure out which zombie story we're gonna start off with today. Okay. Zombie stories. I have a bunch of tabs open because I can't be bothered to just start it. A playlist of things I want to watch. Or listen to in this story. In this case, yeah, so I just open up a bunch of tabs. I'm going through them to make sure I don't have them already opened. Because it would kind of suck just to keep them open. I must really be working through the end of the world ones for the zombie stuff, because. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna separate this out into another window. It's like a way of separating it. Okay. Oh yeah, where's my phone? Okay. So that way, while I'm figuring. Uh, yeah, this reference is getting ripped apart. Probably zombies. So let's try and put this in the same one. There we go. Same window, different tab. I don't have a problem. I just have 3 of these windows open. I don't usually have 3. It's just I found a bunch of news stories, so I've got like probably more than 20 tabs. Oh, okay, here we go. This one specifically, zombies. I try to keep at least most of these, at least focus on the zombies, because of course it's a zombie game. So let's see. I'm actually really interested in listening to this one at some point because it's a game apocalypse. I might put this one in this tab as well in case we run out of zombie stuff for the night. Okay. Repeat apocalypse. This is one of those where you choose powers beforehand. Oh, I've already listened to this one. Because I go, then that's not zombies. Okay, so. Okay. I think we've got a good 4 of these. So let's see what I can scare up. After, yeah, I just don't want to look up anymore right now, because, yeah. It's a lot. I'm, I'm trying to, listen to them all. Take down the influx of tabs. Okay. Okay. Oh, yes, let's start playing it before I start. Oh, I forgot to save this. Oops. I've had a very busy day. Like, even right up until this stream, I haven't had much of a break. If at all, today. It's just been one thing after another. If it's not been one thing I've been managing, it's another, and there we go. I got them all in the same thing, so that'll be shorter between window changes. Before I play this, it is called The End of the World. I was abandoned after rebirth. I had multiple powers and watched them beg. This one was found on Love Short Stories. It looks like it was posted 7 days ago. There are some complaints about the audio track and the CC not being in sync. And some repetitions. So I don't know about the quality, but we're gonna listen to it.
The summer vacation, a zombie outbreak occurred while I was at home. My parents
Is my sound turned down?
decided to drive me out of the house to look for supplies because my younger brother was clamoring. The pain of being bitten by zombies and the feeling of which indoor place outside doesn't cost money. I was reborn a week before.
Oh, that doesn't seem to be this problem. This seems to be
Gavin invited me.
Okay.
During the summer vacation, a zombie outbreak occurred while I was at home. My parents decided to drive me out of the house to look for supplies because my younger brother was clamoring for chocolate and they wanted to give it to him. Before I left, they even drained all my supernatural powers. As a result, I was killed by zombies. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself 3 days before the zombie outbreak, and I had awakened multiple supernatural powers in advance. This time, without me as their laborer, will they still be so united without supernatural powers? 1. Lying around at home all day, you don't even go out for a walk. You have no energy at all. My mother violently opened the door. When I opened my eyes, I saw my mother standing there with her hands on her hips, scolding me. The pain of being bitten by zombies and the feeling of being so hungry that I was on the verge of collapse still seemed to linger. Without thinking too much, I pushed my mother aside and rushed to the refrigerator. I picked up half a watermelon and started eating it. I was so hungry. In my last life, when the zombie outbreak happened, our family didn't go out because we were helping my younger brother with his homework. We managed to avoid the peak of the outbreak and survived. But soon we faced the problem of not having enough supplies. We couldn't go out. Even though my parents had the habit of stockpiling goods, the supplies at home were only enough for the 4 of us to last for a month. My parents were afraid that my younger brother wouldn't have enough to eat. When the meal was ready, they always let my younger brother eat first, and then they would sit at the table. By the time it was my turn to eat, there were only some soup and leftover rice. A week after the end of the world, there wasn't even any leftover rice. According to my mother, your younger brother is a boy. If zombies break in, your younger brother will have to protect you. So of course, we have to take care of your younger brother first. But later, when the supplies were about to run out, my younger brother clamored for chocolate and threatened to go on a hunger strike if he didn't get it. They said that since I was the only one in the family who had awakened supernatural powers, I should go out to look for supplies. But with my water-based supernatural powers, if I went outside, I would just be going to my death. Before I was driven out, my younger brother was afraid that I wouldn't come back, so he suggested that I fill all the containers at home with water before I left. My supernatural powers were drained, and I suggested to my parents that I go look for supplies after my powers recovered. My father looked at me coldly and didn't agree. If you stay at home for one more day, your younger brother will have to wait one more day to eat chocolate. He will go on a hunger strike. As an elder sister, you are being too heartless. But I hadn't eaten for 2 days. My father and mother ignored my struggles and directly pushed me out the door. I hadn't eaten for a long time, and my supernatural powers were drained before I went out. I could barely walk. I desperately knocked on the door and begged my parents to let me in, but they remained indifferent. From beginning to end, they didn't want me to come back. The zombies smelled the breath of a living person and rushed over. I was eaten alive in front of the door. My younger brother's voice came through the crack of the door before I died. That stupid woman didn't even know to die farther away. The door is covered in blood. Not only did she not find the chocolate, but now that she's dead, I don't know how many zombies she will attract. I should have just thrown her downstairs. 2. When I went back to the bedroom, I wasn't sure if what happened in my last life was real or just a dream. I just picked up my phone and was about to check the news online. Suddenly, a familiar energy surged through my body. I controlled the energy and condensed it at my fingertips. A water ball hovered above my fingertips. It was my supernatural power. The end of the world was real. My supernatural powers had come back. 3. I looked at my phone. There were still 3 days before the zombie outbreak. While I was thinking, my mother violently pushed open the bedroom door. "What are you doing staying in the room again? You don't even learn from your younger brother. Go out for a walk. I'm so annoyed seeing you at home every day. Do you think I don't want to go out?" I snapped back angrily. "What?" My mother was taken aback, not expecting me to lose my temper suddenly. I said, "Do you think I don't want to go out? I'm a college student on vacation, and I don't even have 10 yuan in my hand. Which indoor place outside doesn't cost money? Gavin invited me out last time, and you didn't even give me 50 yuan. When she heard this, her face changed instantly. "Eliza, do you have any conscience? I gave birth to you and raised you. Is it my fault for scolding you a few times? Gave birth to me and raised me? Heh, they only gave me some charity occasionally when they could afford it, just to make sure I didn't starve to death, so they could get a high bride price in the future. When I was in senior high school, my younger brother didn't do well in the entrance exam for junior high school. He could only go to a private school. My parents couldn't afford to support 2 children, so they wanted me to drop out of school and go to work to lighten the burden on the family. It was my teacher at that time who couldn't stand it and came to our home personally. He said he would cover my tuition and fees and even apply for poverty assistance for me, so I could continue going to school. My younger brother wanted all kinds of game consoles, and my parents bought them for him. In the past 2 years since I went to college, I've been relying on student loans for my tuition, and I have locked the door behind me, ignoring her desperate knocking. I turned around and started packing my clothes. I stuffed all my bank cards and ID cards into the suitcase. I died once in your hands in my last life. If I stay here any longer, I'm a fool. 4. When I went out with my few belongings, my mother was still cursing at the door. When she saw me carrying my luggage, she became even more aggressive. "What? After scolding you a few times, you're running away from home? After all these years of studying, you've lost all your manners." I didn't want to get into a long argument, so I said perfunctorily, "Fine, fine. You're right. It's all my fault, okay? Anyway, you can't stand the sight of me. I'm leaving. I can go back to school early and earn more living expenses. That way, I won't be an eyesore to you." When she saw how perfunctory I was, she became even angrier and tried to hit me. I caught her raised hand. I already paid off what I owed her when she pushed me out with her own hands in my last life. Ignoring her shouting behind me, I closed the door and walked away without looking back. 5. There were still 3,000 yuan in my bank card. It was a fixed deposit I saved, which I planned to use as living expenses after the semester started. After withdrawing the money from the bank, I found a small hotel and rented a room. With this money, I could only afford to rent a small apartment. There wasn't much else I could do. Suddenly, I saw an advertisement for a loan on the hotel table. On a whim, I downloaded all the loan apps online. For those apps that required a face scan, I used my own identity information. For those that didn't, I used my parents' identity information. I went through all the loan apps in the afternoon. By evening, there were more than 3 million yuan in my bank card. After looking around online, I chose a villa in the outskirts as the safe house. It had 2 floors underground and 3 floors above ground, and it had a sunroom. It had just been completed, and there weren't many residents yet. I died too early in my last life. When it came to stockpiling supplies, I had to prepare as much as possible. After making an appointment with the real estate agent, I went directly to the villa to sign the contract after leaving the hotel. The rent for the villa was 40,000 yuan a month. The minimum lease period was 3 months, so I had to pay 120,000 yuan for the rent. After getting the key to the villa, I carried my suitcase and walked in. I couldn't help but think that it would be great if I had the spatial ability. My water-based ability was still too weak. As I was thinking, I felt a lightness in my hand, and the suitcase in my hand was gone. When I came to my senses, I found that there was a space in my mind, and the suitcase was quietly placed in one corner of the space. I had awakened the spatial ability. 6. I don't know why I awakened the spatial ability, but it was definitely a good thing for me. I was worried about the problem of purchasing supplies before. With the spatial ability, it was much more convenient. There were still 2 days until the end of the world. The online system was complete. I didn't have a company or any connections. Stockpiling a large amount of supplies would definitely attract attention. Afraid that there would be a limit on the bank card, when I took out the loan online, I deliberately filled in several more ID cards. I took my driver's license and took a taxi to the car rental company and rented a small truck. I went to the nearest bank to withdraw the money. I directly went to the largest wholesale market. Buying a large quantity would be too noticeable. I could only use cash and buy them in small quantities multiple times. After testing that the space had a fresh keeping function, I also bought various cooked food and frozen products. When the truck was full, I drove out of the urban area and put the supplies into the space, and then went to buy other supplies. After a day, I had almost bought all the necessary living supplies, but I didn't dare to buy too many medicines. I could only make a few more trips tomorrow. 7. There was 1 day left before the end of the world. I only rented the truck for a day. There were still 4 hours left before I had to return it. After withdrawing the cash that I didn't withdraw yesterday from the bank, I visited all the pharmacies within a 10-kilometer radius. I also bought a solar charging panel and planned to install it myself. Anyway, there were no entertainment programs in the apocalypse, and I would have plenty of time. After returning the truck, I rented a Hummer. The villa seemed safe now, but when the apocalypse came, there would definitely be a lot of changes. It would be better to have a car for evacuation. On the way back to the villa, I went to the wholesale market and bought more than a dozen sets of outdoor jacket and marten boots. Since I had supernatural powers, there would definitely be better combat uniforms with better fabric in the future. Even if there weren't, these would be enough for me to change into. Without the property certificate, I couldn't change the lock or renovate the villa. Fortunately, the villa itself was good, and the walls, doors, and windows had a high level of defense. I just changed the lock core of the main door while the sun was still up. It wasn't that I was being careless. It's just that when I woke up in the morning, I found that I had 2 more supernatural powers: the wood-based and thunder-based powers. Unlike the water-based power, the thunder-based power was extremely powerful. I just changed the lock core of the main door while the sun was still up. It wasn't that I was being careless. It's just that when I woke up in the morning, I found that I had 2 more supernatural powers: the wood-based and thunder-based powers. Unlike the water-based power, the thunder-based power was extremely powerful. In my last life, even though I never left the house, I saw the power of the thunder-based ability online. I still didn't know how to classify the levels, but according to the test results in the morning, it wouldn't be a problem for me to knock down 10 ordinary people. 8. After checking everything, I was just about to go to the supermarket again when my phone rang. It was my mother. As soon as I answered the phone, I heard my mother cursing. "Dead girl, come back quickly. Your younger brother will start school in 2 days. Come back and help him with his homework. I'll let the matter from the day before yesterday go for now." I raised my eyebrows. Why? Isn't your good son the best? Why can't he finish his homework? It was the same in my last life. My younger brother was about to start the 3rd year of junior high school. The school required students to start school on August 20th. The time was running out. My younger brother hadn't even started his homework. Under the pressure of my parents in my last life, I stayed up all night to help him with his homework, and then the zombie outbreak happened before I could even sleep. My mother was furious. If you don't come back today, don't come back to this house again. I was about to agree when I suddenly remembered that there were still a lot of snacks at home. Thinking about how miserably I died in my last life, I couldn't let them have it easy this time. I softened my tone. I understand, Mom. I'll come back later. After going downstairs, I drove the car out and went to the supermarket first. There was still a lot of money in my bank card. If I didn't use it now, I might not have the chance later. But I refused them one by one. After getting off the elevator, I slipped into the corridor and replaced the snacks and fruits with waste paper and garbage from the decoration. 9. When I opened the door, my mother looked at the 2 big shopping bags I was carrying. A smile flashed across her face, and she said, "You're finally being sensible. Girl, you know how to be filial." But when she saw that the bags were full of garbage, she froze. She said angrily, "Are you so desperate that you went out to pick up garbage? You bring all kinds of things home." I deliberately rubbed my hands nervously, looking as timid as before. I've been helping out at my classmates' store recently. They provide food and accommodation, and they pay me 200 yuan a day. I just got off work and was in a hurry to come back, so I forgot to throw away the garbage. When my mother heard that I could get 200 yuan a day, her eyes lit up. 200 yuan? You still have half a month until the semester starts. If you work hard, you can earn 3,000 yuan. I smiled and replied, "Definitely." She also said that since we're classmates, if I do a good job, she might give me a raise. My mother's expression softened. "Eliza, your younger brother will start school soon. Now that you've earned some money, shouldn't you buy something for your younger brother?" I nodded and agreed. Of course. My younger brother is the only boy in the family. We should definitely spoil him. My younger brother heard the conversation and came out of the room. "Don't buy anything random. Look at how poor you are. You don't know what good things are. I won't wear shoes that cost less than 1,000 yuan. I'll send you the shoes I want on WeChat later. Just pay for them." I smiled and agreed, but in my heart, I sneered. One is a daughter who doesn't even have 500 yuan for living expenses, and the other is a son who won't wear shoes that cost less than 1,000 yuan. It's really ironic. 10. Seeing that things were almost settled, my younger brother heard the conversation and came out of the room. "Don't buy anything random. Look at how poor you are. You don't know what good things are. I won't wear shoes that cost less than 1,000 yuan. I'll send you the shoes I want on WeChat later. Just pay for them." I smiled and agreed, but in my heart, I sneered. One is a daughter who doesn't even have 500 yuan for living expenses, and the other is a son who won't wear shoes that cost less than 1,000 yuan. It's really ironic. 10. Seeing that things were almost settled, my father stopped pretending to be dead. "Okay, since you're back, have a good meal. We can talk about other things after eating." I smiled and declined, "No. My classmate is waiting for me to go back. I'll take the homework and leave. I'll bring it back to my younger brother tomorrow night." After saying that, my younger brother directly threw a stack of homework in front of me. "Here. I've written 2 pages of the first book. Remember to imitate my handwriting when you write." Humph, he really overestimated me. He thought I was 1,000-armed guanyin. But thinking about my purpose of coming back, I held back my urge to hit him. I held the homework and stood at the door, mumbling, "If there's nothing else, you can go back. It's not safe for a girl to be out at night." My father urged me. Only then did I speak timidly, "My classmate is going to help me with my younger brother's homework tonight." I was thinking of bringing my classmate some snacks. "I don't have any money in my hand. Could you?" My mother gave me a disdainful look. "I really raised an ungrateful person. You've grown up but haven't brought a single penny home. All you do is ask for money. Do I owe you?" My father then spoke in a timely manner, "See what snacks there are at home and bring some for your classmate. Your mother and I have a hard time making money. You should learn to be considerate of us. Be considerate? I really can't be considerate at all. When it was time for me to pay my tuition fees, they said they didn't have the money. But they bought a guitar worth 6,000 yuan for my younger brother when he said he liked the guitar, and they signed him up for music lessons that cost 400 yuan per session. When I asked for my living expenses for school, they said they didn't have the money, but they spent 1 or 2,000 yuan on a pair of shoes for my younger brother. I didn't say anything. I just took the biggest shopping bag and took away all the snacks I could find. 11. I walked out the door and put the snacks into the space in the stairwell. When I got into the elevator, all I had in my hand was a stack of homework. As soon as I went downstairs, I threw the homework into the garbage bin. The homework of that ungrateful person has nothing to do with me. Moreover, since the end of the world is coming, I'm afraid he won't have to worry about his homework for the rest of his life. When I got back to the villa, all the kitchen utensils I had ordered from the supermarket had been delivered. I have to say that it's great to have money. As long as you pay enough, they can deliver anything you want. I put the kitchen utensils into the space. After making sure that all the doors and windows were locked, I went upstairs to sleep. When I woke up, a new era had begun. 12. The first day of the zombie outbreak. When everyone got up in the morning, they went to work as usual. But no one knew that 2 hours later, their colleagues, parents, and passers-by might all turn into zombies and rush towards them to bite them frantically. When I woke up, the outside world had fallen. Countless new messages popped up on my phone, warning of the disaster. I opened the WeChat page, and some of my classmates and neighbors who were on good terms sent me reminders one after another. But among these people, there were no messages from my parents or my younger brother. Even the family group was silent. If it weren't for the blood outside the villa that hadn't dried up and the zombies wandering around with their bodies, it would seem like an ordinary morning. I found my mother's WeChat and made a video call. I waited for a while, but the call wasn't answered until it was hung up. When I called again, it was directly hung up. I went to the basement of the villa, took out some of the supplies from the space, and took a video. Then I clicked on the family group and sent the video in. Within 2 minutes, video calls popped up one by one. I didn't answer any of them. I just went downstairs to check the door locks by myself. After making sure that no zombies could get in, I went upstairs. I slowly picked up the phone. My mother didn't get angry. Instead, she had a flattering smile on her face. "Eliza, where are you? Mom sees that you have a lot of supplies there." I didn't reply. I just turned on the camera and showed them around the villa, both inside and out. The bright and luxurious decoration and the mountains of supplies were all clearly visible. My younger brother shouted excitedly, "A big villa! How does she, a woman, deserve to live in such a big house? Hurry up and take me there. Let her come back and live in the small house." My father slapped him on the head. Just by looking, I could tell that he didn't use much force. "Eliza, don't listen to Shalwi's nonsense. You are my daughter and deserve the best things in the world. Not to mention the villa, my daughter deserves even a palace." I will definitely correct his thoughts later. I sneered and didn't say anything. My father didn't have much ability and didn't earn as much money as my mother. He never said anything when there were conflicts at home. He only came out as a peacemaker, as if he had just seen the conflict after it was resolved. The house at home was just a small duplex apartment. There were 3 rooms. My parents shared one, the other was given to my younger brother, and the third was turned into my younger brother's esports room. At that time, they said that since I was going to get married and leave home anyway, I might as well make do with a place on the stairs. After all, I rarely stayed at home since I went to college. Just like that, a partition was installed at the corner of the stairs, and a door was put up, which became my room. 13. Seeing that I didn't say anything, my father thought he had convinced me, so he stopped pretending. "Eliza, you're a young girl, and it's not convenient for you to live outside. There are zombies everywhere outside. Dad is worried about you. Why don't you tell Dad your address, and I'll come to find you? I can take care of you." My mother also squeezed in front of the screen and said, "What your father said is right. If we go there, we can not only protect you but also cook and do the laundry for you." I smiled but didn't say anything. I activated my supernatural power, and a water ball appeared at my fingertips. My parents on the other side of the screen were shocked by the scene. But I have awakened my supernatural power and have the ability to protect myself. Suddenly, my father smiled even more brightly. Of course, the words he said were even more shameless. Our Eliza is really amazing. You see, your mother and I are old, and your younger brother is still young. We wanted to go to you, but we're too old and weak. Before he could finish, I interrupted him directly, then just stay at home. His face lit up with joy. So, daughter, are you going to come and pick us up? I didn't want to play along and directly expose their thoughts. No. You didn't answer my calls. Isn't it because you were going to abandon me as your daughter since the end of the world has come? Why should I go and pick you up? Just because you said you were willing to take care of me and cook and do the laundry for me? After their thoughts were pointed out, my parents felt embarrassed. Only my younger brother looked angry. What are you so arrogant about? Do you really think I haven't read end-of-the-world novels? You've only awakened the weakest water-based supernatural power. I insist that you come and pick us up. What can you do about it? As soon as he finished speaking, my mother slapped him and dragged him away. My father was the only one left on the other side of the video. The smile on his face disappeared. He wanted to say something, but I didn't give him a chance. I directly hung up the phone. After that, I took every meal seriously, cooked carefully, and arranged the dishes beautifully. Then I sent the pictures to the family group. With the sound of them cursing angrily in the living room surveillance video and the scene of my younger brother throwing a tantrum on the ground because there wasn't a meal with 3 dishes and a soup, the food in front of me seemed even more delicious. 14. After the end of the world, money and currency were useless. Force became the only truth. My father was no longer restricted by my mother. He beat my mother severely in front of the phone camera. As if afraid that I didn't see it, he cursed while beating her. You bitch. This is how you treated my daughter when I wasn't around. If my daughter hadn't been capable, who knows how you would have tortured her. After that, he pretended to be a loving father and showed me a kind expression. My mother fell to the ground, covered in bruises, and spat at my father. Bah. Gabriel, what kind of big shot are you pretending to be? You were there when I didn't give Eliza her living expenses. Now you're pretending to be a good person. What the hell were you doing before? In response, my mother was beaten even more severely. I thought the phone camera didn't capture the whole thing, so I directly took out the iPad and brought up the surveillance video of the living room. I had my first full meal since the end of the world. But soon, my parents found that my supernatural power had no offensive ability except for being able to release water. My situation became more and more difficult. It was as if to make up for the supplies consumed for that full meal. My mother cooked very little food, and I couldn't even have the leftovers. They only gave me some food when they remembered me. In this life, when my younger brother asked my parents to flush the toilet with the stored water for the 3rd time, no one was willing to indulge him. It's okay to eat less, but people will really die if they don't drink water. I just took a video of myself washing the dishes with my supernatural power and sent it to the family group. As expected, my younger brother exploded with anger. He accused the unwashed plates of being greasy and disgusting and said he didn't want to eat. He also disliked the toilet that hadn't been flushed, saying that he would rather hold it in than use such a stinky toilet. But this time, no one was willing to indulge him. I couldn't help but wonder who would be the next punching bag in this resentful family when no one was willing to be the one to take the blame. 16. But things didn't go as I wished. Before I could see them quarrel among themselves, trouble came to them first. 10 days after the zombie outbreak, even those who had the habit of stockpiling supplies at home had almost run out of supplies. The neighbors found out that I had carried 2 big bags of food home before the end of the world. The property management staff who were trapped in the community also added fuel to the fire and brought up the surveillance video of me going in and out of the elevator. In the elevator, I carried 2 huge shopping bags home. They were filled with food. The bags were so heavy that I could barely walk steadily. When I left the community, my hands were empty. They at my parents like crazy in the property owners group, asking them to share some of the food. My parents naturally saw the messages. But suddenly, my younger brother shouted at the surveillance video, "You knew the end of the world was coming, didn't you? That's why you deliberately put on such a show. You deliberately took away the snacks at home when you left. You were taking revenge on us, weren't you?" I chuckled. He wasn't too stupid. It's a pity that the surveillance records at home could only be saved for 7 days. And they didn't have any evidence. 17. My parents wanted to pretend they didn't see it. But there were people in the community who had awakened their supernatural powers. Those people said that when their supernatural powers became stronger, they would go out to find supplies and return them. But those who understood knew that it was a disguised threat. In my last life, these people really had their moment of glory. They demanded that every household in the property owners group take out some supplies. Otherwise, they would go to their houses and them. At that time, my parents sent a photo of me, who was as thin as a skeleton, and said that there were really no supplies at home. Before the zombie outbreak, I was already on the thin side. After the zombie outbreak, I lost 20 pounds because I didn't have enough to eat. When they saw the photo, they believed my parents' words and didn't come to rob the supplies. In this life, because of me, my parents had obviously become the focus of the property owners group. The zombie outbreak was sudden, and they hadn't had time to throw away the garbage I had brought back. My younger brother wanted to explain, so he took a photo of the 2 bags of garbage and sent it to the group. He said, "That little bitch Zoe brought back 2 bags of garbage. There was no food at all. She even took away all the snacks at home when she left." When the people in the property owners group saw the logo on the garbage bag, after the zombie outbreak, I lost 20 pounds because I didn't have enough to eat. When they saw the photo, they believed my parents' words and didn't come to rob the supplies. In this life, because of me, my parents had obviously become the focus of the property owners group. The zombie outbreak was sudden, and they hadn't had time to throw away the garbage I had brought back. My younger brother wanted to explain, so he took a photo of the 2 bags of garbage and sent it to the group. He said, "That little bitch Zoe brought back 2 bags of garbage. There was no food at all. She even took away all the snacks at home when she left." When the people in the property owners group saw the logo on the garbage bag, they were even more convinced that I had brought supplies home. The bag in the surveillance video clearly showed it. If you don't want to share, just say so. Why put on such a show? Do you really think we're stupid? My younger brother was ill-affected and sent the photos I had sent in the family group to the property owners group. He said, "That little bitch Zoe knew the end of the world was coming. She went out to stockpile supplies behind our backs. She's been eating and drinking well behind our backs. She carried those things just to put on a show for you. Do you really believe her? You're all idiots." But his words only fueled the anger of the other property owners. They all thought he was showing off in a roundabout way. After all, after the zombie outbreak, I was fine and had a meal with 3 dishes and a soup every time. I even paired each dish with a pair of chopsticks to avoid the food getting mixed up. In the eyes of others, it really looked like a sumptuous lunch for a family of 4. 18. When my parents saw these messages, it was too late. The messages couldn't be taken back. My father was so angry that he hit my younger brother for the first time. This time, my mother didn't stop him. My younger brother had been doted on since he was a child and had developed a lawless personality. He naturally wouldn't stand there and let himself be beaten. The 2 of them fought. My father was old and had been sitting in the office for years. He couldn't fight against my younger brother, who was young and strong. Soon, he was pushed down by my younger brother, and his forehead hit the corner of the table. Blood flowed all over the ground, and he didn't get up again. When my younger brother saw this, he calmly wiped his hands and kicked his father's body. "How dare you hit me, you old bastard? Who do you think you are?" Then he turned around and went upstairs. My mother looked at her husband's body and laughed and cried. After a long time, she stood up from the ground and prepared dinner for my younger brother. But to my surprise, after this incident, my younger brother seemed to be reborn too. 19. When I woke up that day, I saw the message my younger brother sent. You were reborn too, weren't you? You should have stayed at home, been driven by me, my parents, and been our slave, and been a poor wretch. Wrong. Everything is wrong. It should be me who enjoys the good life. Half an hour later, he said, but soon things will get back to normal. I will find you. Looking at the messages my younger brother sent on the phone, I couldn't help but think that things were getting interesting. I wanted to open the surveillance video to see what happened, but I saw my younger brother wave his hand, and a bolt of lightning directly shattered the surveillance camera. Did he awaken the thunder-based supernatural power? Did he think he could do whatever he wanted to me just because he had the thunder-based supernatural power? He was really naive. But I can't dampen the enthusiasm of a child, can I? I casually sent him a location. Then I walked into the courtyard of the villa. The gate was wide open. A row of corpses in prison uniforms was hanging on the original fence. But there was no other way. After all, I'm just a seemingly delicate and weak girl. With the aroma of delicious food wafting from my home every day, it's inevitable to be coveted in this apocalyptic world. I casually sent out several ice mists, freezing the corpses on the fence even harder. This was to prevent the corpses from rotting in the summer heat and ruining people's appetites. I placed a lounge chair under the sunshade in the courtyard. When I had nothing to do, I would sunbathe, drink watermelon juice, and wait for my dear younger brother to arrive. 20. Thankfully, I didn't have to wait long. At 4 in the afternoon, my younger brother led a group of people to the villa. He obviously thought he had the upper hand. However, when he saw the corpses on the fence, a hint of fear flashed in his eyes. I didn't waste any more words. After all, I had been lying on the lounge chair all day and was already missing the big bed in the villa. Before they could react, I raised my hand and knocked down the people behind my younger brother. In an instant, only he and my mother were left standing. Fear flashed in his eyes, but he still wanted to fight desperately. He suddenly threw a thunderball at me. I simply blocked it with the water-based ability that he despised the most. With a flick of my finger, I sent the thunderball back. He was drenched in water, and the lightning coursed through his body. The electricity made him tremble all over. It took him a long time to recover. Why? Isn't the water-based ability the weakest? How could you possibly? I put my finger to my lips and made a should gesture. This is the apocalypse. Anything is possible. Then, I showed him my other abilities. Water-based, thunder-based, wood-based, fire-based, ice-based, spatial, and even time-based abilities. My mother stood aside, completely stunned. Watching the various abilities transform in my hands, my younger brother finally faced the reality. What do you want? I chuckled softly. Then I raised my finger and pointed at my mother. Kill her. A look of hesitation flashed across my younger brother's face, but he still raised his hand without hesitation. The lightning rushed towards my mother. Soon, she fell to the ground, twitching, her eyes wide open in disbelief and hatred. She couldn't believe that the son she had always doted on would actually attack her. 21. Can I leave now? My younger brother hung his head, making it impossible to tell what he was thinking. I smiled. Did I ever say I would let you go? They also said that since I was the only one in the family who awakened supernatural powers, I should go out to look for supplies. Just as my parents couldn't believe that they would die at the hands of their own son. I didn't bother to explain further. I waved my hand and drained all the moisture from his body. In an instant, he turned into a dried corpse. I thought to myself, who on earth spread the rumor that water-based ability users are weak? Used properly, it's extremely powerful. Soon, his and my mother's corpses became the newest additions to the fence. 22. I don't know who spread the news about my multiple awakened abilities, but it quickly caught the attention of the higher-ups. I was recruited into a special department. It turned out that we had never been abandoned. A month into the apocalypse, the Superior Rescue Order was issued. The rescued survivors were properly arranged in various bases. I was sent on missions to deal with high-level zombies and heterogeneity that ordinary ability users couldn't handle. Compared to the days of slacking off, it's a bit more tiring. I even get injured occasionally. But who can resist the one-on-one service of a state banquet chef? 3 years into the apocalypse, the cause of the zombie outbreak remains unknown. But everything is getting better, and we will eventually move towards the light. It was 42 degrees Celsius when I received a message from Walter asking why I hadn't come to work yet. Before I could reply, another message popped up in the company group chat. Starting today, anyone who is more than 10 minutes late will have half a day's pay deducted.
Let me double check
I
that.
smiled
Make sure
as
that
I
it's
read
on
the
the
message.
same one.
They didn't know that in 12 hours, the end of the world would begin. 9 a.m., 12 hours before.
Okay, no, it's not. Okay. Reborn before Doomsday, I built a steel fortress and watched the fake Eris get ripped apart. Afterglow of Doom is the channel that this one plays on. Looks like it was posted 2 months ago. Looks like in the comments this one's supposed to be pretty good.
I was reborn a week before the zombie outbreak. At that time, I had just finished handling my adoptive mother's funeral and was brought back home by the Fan family as the true heiress, but they didn't love me at all. They only intended to use me as a tool for marriage alliances. However, the fake heiress Fan Yuan was displeased with me, thinking that my arrival would steal my parents' affection from her and take away her inheritance. So she abandoned me on a deserted island under the pretense of a relaxing vacation, leaving me to die. In my previous life, after 6 months of surviving in the wilderness, a crashed helicopter fell onto this island, and several zombies crawled out from inside. It was then that I learned about the outbreak of the zombie crisis outside. Because I had almost no tools, I fell ill and died just a year later, without waiting for rescue, and I had no idea whether the crisis outside had been resolved. In this new life, I naturally won't repeat the same mistakes, so when she volunteered to take me on a vacation to a deserted island, I acted all excited and eagerly grabbed her hand, saying, "That's great, it's my first time going out with my sister, can we bring more stuff, we can stay there for a while." Seeing how easily I took the bait, she was very happy and said I could bring whatever I wanted. The earlier we prepared, the earlier we could leave. I showed a hesitant expression and said, "Sister, I don't have much money and can't prepare much. Is this trip going to cost you a lot? If that's the case, then I won't go." This made her anxious, and she directly handed me one of her cards, telling me to prepare whatever I wanted and not to feel embarrassed. I definitely had to go. If possible, she would love to send me away tomorrow. I'm also very anxious. I must prepare enough tools for survival on the deserted island before the apocalypse breaks out.
Have you ever played those fake games you see in the ads where you can get +1, -2? It never plays like the actual ad. It always shows those little blue guys trying to get upgrades and defeat the boss. Bro, you downloaded the wrong one. You need to click the link below and download Top War. Okay, let's see what this is about. Okay, we just gotta get this
It's
guy
the
out of this tank.
advertisements
Nice.
again.
Okay, we can go ahead and get this guy first. Perfect, now we're upgraded. We can take down the little dudes. We still need to get our friend out of the tank. Okay, we're gonna put
Shaq,
this hit
sweetheart,
against
are
me
you trying to
+6. That's
knock down
just enough to hold them
shelves?
off. And can we get
Are
our
you
dude? He's so
testing the
close. No, but the
strength of
boss is
them
even
again?
closer. He's coming. He's coming. Yes, we got him. Okay, now we can get our guy out right here. So close. Come on, come on, come on. Yes. Wait, we're not close enough. We're gonna lose our guys. No, and
Okay.
now the last boss is
Because my
here. This
app
isn't
crashed,
good.
it
Wow,
took
this
me
actually
longer.
plays just like the ads. If you guys want to.
Oh my
What
god,
I
it's
need
one
to
of
do now
those.
is stock up, buy rice, flour, water, meat, vegetables, medicine, seeds, clothes, buy freezers, water tanks, computers, hard drives, generators, solar panels, buy cars, knives, chainsaws, helmets, and armor. I waved my hand and made a list that was dozens of meters long. Then, while I was frantically downloading TV shows, variety shows, anime, and games onto my hard drive, I called my childhood friend and boyfriend, Zhong Rui. He is the only person I can trust right now. We grew up together, so we can be considered childhood sweethearts. He is
What is
very
wrong with
smart,
my
has
mouse?
strong practical skills, and is a rare talent in the Appocolypse. In my previous life, I had called him before going to the deserted island, and we had agreed to resist the forced marriage imposed by his parents together. I wonder how he is doing after the apocalypse, but it doesn't matter now. I will bring him along. Zhong Rui's parents passed away a few years ago, and he is now alone as well. Without any worries, it feels much more liberating. I gave him the list and insisted that he prepare these items within 5 days and rent a boat to transport everything to the deserted island. He was puzzled about why I was doing this, and I told him I would explain later. The situation is urgent now. In short, there's no time to explain. Quickly bring the supplies and get to the island. In the past few days, I've left the stockpiling to Zhong Rui while I focus on downloading our spiritual sustenance on the computer. Additionally, I go on a spending spree at various restaurants. Others who are reborn in the apocalypse come with their own space, able to pack thousands of dishes, including all 8 major cuisines. As for me, I have no space and can only eat 3 big bowls of rice with tears in my eyes. It's so delicious. I really wish I had 4 stomachs. I packed several suitcases full of snacks and clothes, as well as a box of survival gear. I created a feeling for Fan Yuanyuan that I couldn't wait to live outdoors for a long time. Soon it was the day Fan Yuanyuan took me to the island. Wow, sister, look, the mountains and waters here are so beautiful. It's perfect for seclusion. The 2 sisters held my arm tightly, wanting to take me into the deep mountains. I walked along with her, marveling. Yes, Yuanyuan, you're amazing. How did you find this place? Fan Yuanyuan calmly dodged a branch that almost brushed against her arm, saying, I happened to see it while taking a helicopter ride. If you like it, we can come here often in the future. I secretly laughed to myself. I'm planning to settle down here, and you might not even be able to come back. In my previous life, she never came back until I died from illness. I don't know if she died or if she simply had no intention of coming back. I said, Yuan. I always thought you were a pampered young lady who never touched a drop of water, but I didn't expect you to like wilderness survival too. Yeah, I really like it. She had just seen a caterpillar and was scared half to death. Now she could only speak to me with a pale face, clearly so scared yet still trying to trick me. She really makes me want to cry. I suddenly wanted to get back at her, as a form of revenge for her bad intentions. Yuan, let's go inside and take a look. Maybe we'll encounter some cute little animals. I enthusiastically pulled her arm and led her into the mountains. According to my memory, not far ahead there is a snake den, although it looks terrifying. They are all non-venomous snakes. I even caught some to roast and eat back in the day. There was no salt, but the taste was still quite good, enough to scare Fan Yuanyuan to the point of losing her mind. Fan Yuanyuan was being dragged along by me, the poor child still unaware of what she was about to face. When I lifted the stone and revealed a group of snakes intertwined beneath it, Fan Yuanyuan's scream nearly pierced my eardrums. Seeing her in such a state of panic made me feel incredibly pleased. Alright, Yuanyuan, seeing you so scared, this snake is non-venomous. I hadn't finished speaking when she screamed and ran away. Watching her stumble and disappear into the forest, I couldn't help but click my tongue. It seems she has decided to leave me behind tonight earlier than planned. I looked down at the snakes that were preparing to attack because they were disturbed, and silently put the stone back. Be good, I'll come find you when food runs out. I wandered around the mountain a few more times and collected some firewood, to make me feel that this place is truly a safe vacation spot. Fan Yuanyuan even built a small wooden house on the island. Although there is no water, no electricity, no food, and no medicine, apart from a bed, it is still a pretty good shelter. Thanks to this little cabin, I was able to survive for a year. In my previous life, after playing until I was tired, I would just fall asleep, and Fan Yuanyuan took the opportunity to leave while I was asleep. When I woke up, I was the only one left on the island, so what I need to do tonight is pretend to be asleep and leave. After Fan Yuanyuan has gone, I will start my shelter construction plan. Zombies are afraid of fire but not of water, so we cannot rule out the possibility of them drifting to the island with the current. At least in my previous life, before I died, there were no additional zombies that came to the island, so it should be safe, but I cannot let my guard down. It is now 4 in the afternoon. and I was just about to head back when I heard the sound of a helicopter. It seemed she came to pick her up early. I slowly walked towards the cabin holding firewood, and sure enough, I saw Fan Yuanyuan standing in the clearing waiting for the helicopter. She probably saw that no one was in the house and wanted to return first while I was still in the forest. I didn't go out. Instead, I hid behind a tree. Hurry up, let's go so I can start building a home. As I thought this, I watched the helicopter in the sky approaching in a wobbly manner. Wait, wobbly, this scene is just like the plane crash from years ago. I couldn't help but feel that something was wrong. Did the zombie virus break out early? Fan Yuanyuan was completely unaware of this. She eagerly walked over. The helicopter slowly descended in front of her, but the cabin door did not open. Seeing that no one was opening the door for a long time, Fan Yuanyuan became impatient. She stepped forward and knocked hard on the glass of the cabin door. What's going on? Hurry up and open the door. In an instant, a bloodied and mangled face appeared on the glass of the cabin door. Fan Yuanyuan was only separated from that face by a sheet of glass. When she locked eyes with the white of its eye sockets, she was immediately terrified and screamed, collapsing to the ground. Following that, a second mutated face appeared on the glass window. There is no doubt that the two pilots flying the helicopter have turned into zombies. Fan Yuanyuan was so scared that she almost fainted. She crawled back using all her limbs, shouting, "Help, help, there's a monster." As I watched the cabin door being violently shaken by two zombies, I didn't have time to look for any weapons and rushed out with a long wooden stick. The cabin door could probably hold for a few more minutes. I didn't have time to think much and fiercely jabbed at the helicopter's fuel tank. Oil gushed out, and I shouted to Fan Yuanyuan, "Quick, give me the lighter," but she was already scared stiff. Completely unresponsive to my words, I had no choice but to run to her side, rummaging through her pockets until I found her lighter. Here goes. I ignited the lighter and threw it hard at the helicopter. The lighter arced through the air and accurately struck the helicopter. The helicopter was instantly ignited, producing a series of bang-bang explosions, sending debris flying everywhere. Fan Yuanyuan was hit on the head by falling debris, let out a cry, and fainted. I listened as the screams of the zombies and the flames gradually weakened, and finally let out a sigh of relief. At the same time, the doubts and anxieties in my heart continued to grow. Why did the person coming to pick up Fan Yuanyuan turn into a zombie? Did the virus break out early? How did Fan Yuanyuan manage to contact a helicopter to pick her up on the deserted island? Zhong Rui hasn't set off yet. He won't be in trouble, will he? Fan Yuanyuan is now also forced to stay on the island. What should I do? The helicopter quickly burned down to just a skeleton. The smell of charred remains hit my nostrils, and I took off my jacket to cover my mouth and nose. After confirming that the helicopter wouldn't explode again, I slowly approached. Two zombies had turned into charred corpses. I put on the prepared protective gloves and rummaged through them, but as expected, I found nothing useful. I can only wait for Fan Yuanyuan to wake up and see if she can provide any clues. Nowadays, the virus might break out earlier, and I don't know if Zhong Rui can still come to the island as we agreed. There is no signal here, and we are completely isolated from the outside world. It was already dusk, and I realized that it would soon be dark, so I hurried back to the woods to bring back firewood. With the experience from my previous life, starting a fire was no longer a difficult task for me. When the campfire was lit and I was skillfully grilling fish, Fan Yuanyuan finally woke up. She looked around in confusion, then remembered the scene she saw before losing consciousness, and let out another scream. At this point, I have no desire to continue playing along with her. Stop calling, it's too noisy. In my previous life, I didn't have much interaction with her, and when I was abandoned on the island, I only thought she was both stupid and malicious. In this life, I might have to live on the island with her for a long time. And I really don't want to spend a long time with someone like her. The moment I think about Zhong Rui's uncertain fate, I lose all my good mood. Seeing my face dark and terrifying, Fan Yuanyuan shivered and closed her mouth. I directly asked her, "What happened with the helicopter? There's no signal on the island. How did they arrive early? And how did the people who came to pick you up turn into zombies?" It took her a long time to understand the meaning of the word zombie. Looking at the helicopter that had burned down to a skeleton and the two charred corpses not far away, she struggled to suppress her urge to vomit and said haltingly, "No, no, It's not that, I don't know. I have a satellite phone that can contact the outside. I originally planned to have them come pick me up after you fell asleep at night, but I couldn't stay any longer, so I had them come in the afternoon. After she finished this sentence, she suddenly realized that her intention to abandon me on the island had been exposed. I sneered. Do you think I don't know your little schemes? Seeing her plan exposed, she became somewhat flustered and for a moment forgot the fear brought by the zombies. She jumped up and shouted at me. It's all your fault, Fan Wenwen. If it weren't for your appearance, I would be my parents' only daughter. She angrily pointed at me. You took away the love my parents gave me all to myself. I wish you had disappeared sooner. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have to come to this godforsaken place. I casually grabbed a long wooden stick nearby and jabbed it hard into her stomach. She let out a scream and fell to the ground, clutching her stomach. Don't blame me for everything, mister. Fan has long wanted to use me as a tool for a marriage alliance. They are the same with you, only valuing interests and not caring about family ties. Only you would believe that they truly love you. After dropping this line, I casually placed the wooden stick on the ground. Where's your satellite phone? At a time like this, aren't you going to call your parents? Fan Yuanyuan was furious, but after I hit her, she didn't dare to resist and obediently took out her phone to start dialing. After several attempts, the call still didn't go through. Unable to reach her parents on the phone, Fan Yuanyuan started calling her friends. None of them were reachable. Her face was pale. How could this happen? Everything was normal this afternoon. I irritably rubbed my forehead and reached out to her. Give it to me. Seeing that she didn't really want to give it to me, I directly reached out and snatched it, starting to call Zhong Rui. Unexpectedly, it didn't go through. I called other friends again, but it didn't connect. I called the rescue hotline, but still received no response. After multiple unsuccessful attempts, I returned the satellite phone to Fan Yuanyuan. She stopped dialing and began to cry softly. It can't be. It can't be. The phone must be broken. My mom and dad must be fine. They will definitely come to rescue me. I got up from the ground and brushed off the dust from my clothes. All right. Stop crying. If you still have the energy, come keep watch. I'm going back to sleep. She looked at my calm expression, surprised, and then began to accuse me. How can you be so composed? Don't you care about mom and dad's well-being? Care? They treat me like a tool. Why should I worry about them? I continued walking straight towards the wooden house. Wait. She grabbed my hand. This house was prepared by me in advance. I should be the one sleeping in the bed. I irritably shook off her hand. Well, I wish you sweet dreams, miss. I hadn't planned to sleep tonight anyway, since I couldn't trust her to keep watch. Besides, I was really worried about Zhong Rui and couldn't fall asleep at all. Watching Fan Yuanyuan enter the house and close the door, I sat back down by the fire, looking at the endless horizon of the sea. I knew that tonight was destined to be a sleepless night. To my surprise, just as dawn was breaking, I saw a ship slowly approaching the horizon. It seemed to be carrying quite a bit of cargo and was moving slowly. But it was indeed heading towards this island. My heart was pounding as I watched the ship draw closer, and I finally saw the person at the bow of the ship. It was Zhong Rui. I was so excited that I burst into tears. I quickly lowered my head to wipe my tears with my clothes and then ran desperately towards the edge of the island. It was quite a large fishing boat, piled high with the things I needed. Zhong Rui stopped the boat, jumped down, and hugged me tightly. Only then did I notice that he looked quite disheveled, with his coat torn in one place and dried blood smeared on him. My heart tightened, and I quickly asked, "Are you hurt?" He shook his head. "No, this blood isn't mine." Suddenly, a barking dog interrupted my thoughts. I looked in the direction of the sound and saw a scruffy, fierce-looking dog jump down from the boat. I was startled, but the big dog showed no signs of aggression. It drooped its head and quietly walked over to sit beside us. Zhong Rui's expression was somewhat sad. He is Uncle Zhang's dog, named De Huang. He told me that, in fact, he had already loaded all the supplies onto the rented boat yesterday afternoon, just waiting to set off this morning at the agreed time. However, that night, when he was having dinner with the boat owner, Uncle Zhang, the zombie virus outbreak occurred. They were at the dockside restaurant at the time. And Zhong Rui immediately realized that my plan to stockpile supplies and go to the island was to avoid the zombies, so he rushed to the boat with Uncle Jean. It was chaotic along the way, but they managed to board the boat safely. At that time, many people were running towards the boat, trying to escape from the zombies. Zhong Rui and the others were quick and reached the dock first, with zombies and fleeing people chasing behind. Uncle Jean hurriedly raised the anchor, and Zhong Rui cut the mooring rope to help start the engine. Just then, the crowd and the horde of zombies surged forward. They were not afraid of the water and scrambled onto the boat. Uncle Jean, caught off guard, was dragged into the water.
Of course. One of these days, I will figure out how to make this. Oh my goodness. It's gonna make me restart the app again. Okay. And the longer it does that.
Zhong Rui quickly reached out to pull him back, but it was too late. Uncle Jean was bitten hard. De Huang, eager to save him, jumped in as well, but Uncle Jean used all his strength to throw De Huang back onto the boat. Go. Uncle Jean mustered his last breath and kicked the boat hard. Zhong Rui couldn't bear to watch any longer. With tears in his eyes, he swung his knife to slash a zombie that had climbed onto the boat, holding onto the barking De Huang with one hand, and left the dock on the boat. Throughout the journey, he struggled to calm his emotions, and De Huang seemed to sense something was wrong, whimpering and crying beside Zhong Rui. The man and his dog nestled against each other. And it wasn't until this morning when he saw the deserted island that he began to feel a bit more uplifted. I remained silent, and after he finished telling me everything, I quietly held him close. I can't imagine staying calm if such terrifying scenes from movies were to happen in reality. Even more unimaginable is watching someone I just had dinner with being devoured by zombies right before my eyes. So all I can do is accompany you. I squatted down again and patted the big yellow dog's head. It twitched its nose and began to sniff the scent on me. I said, I will definitely protect you well, Zhong Rui, and I started moving supplies from the boat. And while we worked, I told him everything about my rebirth, including yesterday's sudden situation and Fan Yuanyuan being forced to stay on the island. He asked me, how do you plan to get along with her? In fact, I really want to drive her away and let her fend for herself on the island, to experience the pain I felt in my previous life. But could I really let her fend for herself? I can't do what she did. For a moment, my feelings were quite complicated. Zhong Rui stood beside me, wrapping his arm around my shoulder. Wen, no matter what choice you make, I will support you. I sighed and finally decided, as long as she doesn't provoke me, I can coexist peacefully with her. If she dares to resist, I will throw her into the mountains. Anyway, he can't beat me. I can take her on one-on-one. I punched her down to the underworld. Of course, Zhong Rui could also have a 70-30 split with her. He hit her 3 times on the head, when Fan Yuanyuan, with large dark circles under her eyes, came out of the small wooden house. She saw the two of us and a dog covered in dust making a spike barricade. The two of us were busy all morning. After moving all the supplies off the ship, we found a suitable place to bury the 2 charred zombies. Then we hurried back to make roadblocks, with no time to wash our faces. Fan Yuanyuan was shocked to see a large pile of supplies appear out of nowhere. She jogged over to us and asked, what's going on? I explained succinctly, this is my boyfriend, Zhong Rui. You wanted to abandon me on the island to fend for myself, so I took advantage of the situation and had my boyfriend bring some supplies to keep me company on my vacation. Who would have thought that we would coincidentally hit the zombie outbreak? We really have to thank you for providing us with such a great secluded shelter. This sentence was meant to be sarcastic towards her, but she actually became proud of it. Then you should all thank me properly. If it weren't for me, you would have been eaten by zombies long ago. Both Zhong Rui and I glared at her at the same time, and she was immediately scared into silence. Fan Yuanyuan, if I hadn't saved you yesterday, you would have been eaten by zombies long ago. This morning we dealt with the corpses, moved the supplies, and soon we will set traps and expand the base. What about you? What do you plan to do? I'm actually not at ease with her doing the work, but I can't just let her live off me for free. Seeing Fan Yuanyuan hesitate, I pointed to the plastic bucket and travel backpack set aside. Go gather firewood. and bring back a few buckets of water. I've drawn a map for you, and I've put food in the backpack. Don't worry, there are no wild beasts in this nearby forest." She immediately became unhappy. "You want me to do this heavy work?" I stood up and looked down at her from above. "So, can you cook?" She lowered her head, feeling guilty. "No." I asked again. "Can you boil water?" She shook her head. "So do you want to eat? Do you want to take a hot shower?" She immediately nodded. I punched her on the shoulder, then hurry up.
With Verizon, you could save big on all your favorite entertainment. Whoa! Careful now, that's gonna... Yep. There it is. Surprise yourself with savings. Get over 40% off
What
the
is wrong with
entertainment you love.
Streamlabs today?
Only with Verizon.
Been having the same trouble recently.
"Are you just going to sit there and wait for me to serve you?" She covered her shoulder, no longer daring to ask more, and left with her things. I said to De Huang, "De Huang, go watch over her. When you come back, I'll give you a ton of bone soup." De Huang happily barked a few times and trotted over. In the afternoon, we began to organize the supplies. The wooden cabin is small and can't hold much. Fortunately, according to my memory, it won't rain for the next week. What we need to do in the next few days is to build an elevated warehouse. I planned out the blueprint for the shelter's construction, and then Zhong Rui went into the forest. I stayed behind and set up the generator according to the tutorial, and then I put all the perishable food, including vegetables and meat, into the freezer. As for rice and flour and cooking oil, we can discuss that later. Zhong Rui made several trips back and forth with the cart, while Fan Yuanyuan only returned near dusk. Looking dirty all over and carrying a bucket of water, I was very dissatisfied with her efficiency in fetching just one bucket of water, but she pitifully claimed that walking the mountain path was too tiring and that she also had to gather firewood, which had left her hands all scraped up. I was speechless. "Sister, do you still think of yourself as a wealthy young lady?" I told her with a fierce expression that if she fetched less water, she would have to wipe herself down with a towel for tonight's bath. If we couldn't find enough firewood, we would only be able to eat instant noodles tonight. In fact, for Zhong Rui and me, this was hardly a big deal. However, Fan Yuanyuan had been spoiled since childhood, and upon hearing this, she couldn't sit still and immediately cried, promising to work harder next time. I couldn't be bothered with her and made instant noodles to eat, with De Huang around. "We don't have to worry about keeping watch at night." Fan Yuanyuan insisted on sleeping in the bed, while Zhong Rui and I set up a double bed next to it, cuddling sweetly together. It's so nice, a happy life with two people and a dog. If only this third wheel weren't here. In the following days, we methodically built our shelter every day. The storage warehouse was completed, and the water reservoir and farm were taking shape. Zhong Rui even took the time to build a stove, and with a rain cover. A simple kitchen was formed. The barricades have been completed. As long as it's not a large-scale zombie tide, we can hold them off. Whenever we have free time, we work out and follow online tutorial videos to learn combat skills, which will help us better defend against zombies. Surprisingly, Fan Yuanyuan hasn't caused any trouble these past few days. She seems like a different person, working diligently every day. The wicked woman is quietly plotting, and she is definitely up to no good. I had De Huang guard the warehouse where the supplies were stored, and sure enough, I heard its barking and Fan Yuanyuan's screams at night. "Dead dog, get away." Zhong Rui and I got up to take a look, and we saw Fan Yuanyuan being knocked down by De Huang, with several bags of instant noodles scattered around her. Seeing me arrive, Fan Yuanyuan shouted at me, "Fan Wenwen, quickly let your crazy dog get away." "All right." I walked over with a stick. "De Huang, let her go. You can't bite indiscriminately." De Huang fiercely stepped on Fan Yuanyuan's feet with its paws and returned to my side. I then raised the wooden stick and mercilessly poked it into her shoulder. "Speak, what do you want to do?" Seeing that Fan Yuanyuan refused to answer, I raised the wooden stick again. I said. Fan Yuanyuan raised her hand in fear to cover her face. "I want to leave here and go back to find Dad." I sneered. "Are you crazy?" She exploded with rage. "You're the one who's crazy. You actually want to live here for the rest of your life. Let me tell you, Fan Wenwen, I'm not like you. I am the only true heiress of the Fan family, and you are just a useless nobody." I swung the stick at her, and while she screamed and rolled on the ground, she still retorted, I want to go back. My dad is so powerful. He can definitely protect me. I don't want to live like a caveman with you here. Her words really made me laugh. Want to leave? Fine. I hit her again with my stick, but don't take our food. And how do you plan to get out? By boat. Not to mention whether you can even drive it. That boat is ours, and you have no right to board. I have money. It's just a broken boat. I can buy it. Sister, it's the end of the world. Who cares about your little bit of money? Whether you have a life to spend is another matter. I didn't expect that Fan Yuanyuan suddenly got smart. She pointed at the supplies behind me and shouted. Where did you get so much money? These things must have been bought with my money. So all of this is my stuff. Give it back to me. Oh, not too stupid after all. I crossed my arms and looked at her disdainfully. Fan Yuanyuan, this is your own doing. You insisted on bringing me to this island, and I merely played along with your scheme. As for you, the instigator who reaps what you sow, what right do you have to negotiate with me? If you want me to fend for myself, then I suppose it's no big deal if I want you dead, right? She turned pale with fear. What do you mean? I pointed to the forest behind me. Don't you want to leave? Go collect materials and build a boat to get away. If I catch you trying to steal supplies again, I'll hit you every time I see you. Afraid she wouldn't leave, I added, if you beg me now, I might still be willing to spare you a little food. Go if you want. Who cares about you? What do you think you are? She was indeed provoked, pointing at me and shouting, I'm better than you in every way. Who do you think you are? I tell you, one day you'll be on your knees begging me. After she finished speaking, she ran away. Anyone can throw out harsh words. I shouted at her back, don't get bitten by a snake. Watching her stumble, I laughed heartily. Is this it? Life has been particularly pleasant without Fan Yuanyuan, and in the blink of an eye, 6 months have passed. I sit in the open space, staring blankly at the sky, counting the days. The plane crash happened today. According to my memories, it was a private plane, and when it crashed, everyone turned into zombies. 5 people in total, 4 men and 1 woman. In my previous life, I was quite frightened by the zombies. While dodging them and dealing with them, I noticed that the plane was leaking fuel. There was no time to salvage the remaining supplies on the plane before it exploded. I found an electronic diary on one of the male zombies' phones, which helped me understand the entire process of the zombie virus outbreak. In this life, if I can prevent the plane from exploding, I might be able to obtain more information. The time for the crash is approaching. Zhong Rui and I are wrapped up tightly, each holding a crowbar, ready to spring into action. There will be half an hour from the emergence of the zombies to the plane explosion. We need to act quickly. Zhong Rui nodded, and the 2 of us looked tense as we watched a plane, billowing black smoke, wobble closer and closer, heading straight for the island we were on. From the rolling black smoke, 5 twisted bodies of zombies emerged. Zhong Rui and I exchanged a glance and both charged forward with crowbars in hand. We had learned from zombie movies that the first step was to break their legs, then smash their skulls. I charged at a zombie and first smashed its kneecap with a club, then, as it bent down on one knee, I brought the club down hard on its head. If 1 hit didn't crush it, then 2 would. In less than 5 minutes, the 2 of us had dealt with 5 zombies. There was no time to clean the blood off us, so we dashed into the wreckage of the plane. The wireless phone was no longer working. Sparks were flying from the dashboard, and the entire system had failed. There were no clues in the cockpit, so we went to the passenger cabin to search, dragging out several scattered suitcases. There was also a broken camera. I checked it, and fortunately, the debit card still works. We searched carefully around the area, even wanting to tear apart the cushions to check. After confirming that nothing was left behind, we returned satisfied, of course. We also dragged the bodies of the 5 zombies back to burn and bury them. We returned to the shelter and began organizing the new clues we had obtained. The man's phone recorded how he survived for a long time after the zombie outbreak by relying on the supplies he had stockpiled at home. Later, he took the risk to go out in search of food and encountered a small action team. The survivors formed a group and established a shelter, but the urban areas had already fallen. They were arranged to fly a plane to search for islands where they could survive. According to his description, it seems that someone infected got on the plane, which led to the death of everyone on board. We also went through the luggage of several people and learned some information about the survivors. Currently, almost all urban areas in the human world have fallen, with only remote mountainous regions and some offshore islands having established shelters. Moreover, it is not just humans that have mutated, animals have as well. Most marine creatures have also mutated, making it extremely dangerous to go out to sea by boat. This is also the reason they took a plane to search for new islands. They wanted to find a piece of land that had not been contaminated, in order to facilitate their future survival and development. However, the materials they carried completely omitted any mention of the cause of the virus outbreak. We picked up the camera beside us, and at the moment we pressed record, we all gasped in shock. In the footage, human cities resembled a hell on earth, with a tide of densely packed zombies filling the streets. The roads, bridges, and rivers were all crowded with zombies and mutated animals. Although the filming distance was far, I still broke out in a cold sweat. Zhong Rui's expression was also grim. He held me without saying a word. We silently watched the entire recording, suddenly feeling a sense of helplessness. Is this world really going to end? It was 3 months later when I saw Fan Yuanyuan again. She appeared before us disheveled, her clothes torn into rags, barely hanging on her body with vines. Her once smooth and fair skin was now dark and dry, and she had lost a significant amount of weight, with countless new and old scars all over her body. As soon as she saw me, she began to go hysterical. It's all your fault. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be like this now, to be honest. I'm surprised she's still alive, but I still picked up a stick and hit her. She screamed and ran away, cursing as she went. You're dead, Fan Wenwen. My dad will send someone to pick me up soon. The apocalypse is over, and you're all doomed. I was taken aback. Is this it? Seeing me frozen in place, Fan Yuanyuan laughed triumphantly, holding up the satellite phone in her hand. My dad got in touch with me. I told him the location of the island, and he said he would send the military to pick me up. I'll be going back soon. She looked a bit deranged. I'm finally leaving. I'm going back. Ha ha ha. I feel like she's gone mad. Seeing my disdain, she rushed over and grabbed my hand. You don't believe me? I'll call my dad right now. Just wait and see. I'm going to make my dad teach you a lesson, kick you out of the house, and even see you for abusing me, putting you in jail. I disgustedly shook off her hand, and she fell to the ground, starting to make a phone call. To my surprise, the call really went through. Dad, please come and pick me up. There was silence on the other end for a while, then I heard someone moving, and soon, Dad's voice came through. Yuan, be good, Dad will come to pick you up home soon. Fan Yuanyuan looked at me triumphantly. Did you see? I told you the apocalypse is over. Fan Wenwen, if you kneel down and beg me now, I might still convince my dad to take you with him. Otherwise, you can either fend for yourself here or wait to go to prison. She continued to be arrogant, but unexpectedly, the tone on the other end of the phone suddenly changed. Yuanyuan, didn't you say you were alone? How come Wenwen is there too? Are there other forces with you? Fan Yuanyuan was unconcerned. Dad, there are only 2 of them, and they bully me. Clearly, there are so many supplies, but they never share a bite with me. On the other end of the phone, Fan's father's voice rose. Supplies? How many? A lot. A whole ship's worth of supplies. Fan Yuanyuan danced with excitement. Her man brought it on the boat. They even built a shelter. I heard cheers rising and falling from the other end of the phone. Fan Yuanyuan didn't pay attention, but I did. A man said, damn it. There's not a single bite to eat in this broken place. I didn't expect anyone to be living well on the island. I quickly realized that this was not the military at all, but a group of doomsday fanatics. They are not here to pick anyone up. They are coming to settle on the island and seize supplies. Yet, Fan Yuanyuan hasn't noticed anything at all. While I was cursing how there could be such a foolish woman, I reached out and snatched her satellite phone. Hanging up, she lunged at me to grab it, and I kicked her away. This woman who only brings bad things cannot be kept. But I don't want to get my hands dirty. I coldly laughed at her. Without your guidance, they would never reach the island in their lifetime. Without a boat, you have no way to rescue them. After saying that, I left without looking back, just waiting for the fish to bite. Fan Yuanyuan took advantage of the night to escape. I heard the sound of the big yellow dog and went outside to check. Fan Yuanyuan had already moved some food onto the fishing boat and was starting the engine, preparing to leave. I shouted, "Are you crazy? Come back." Fan Yuanyuan shouted back, "You're the crazy one. I really have to thank you for reminding me. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have thought of taking the boat to find Dad and the others." Ha ha ha. Fan Wenwen, you idiot. Just wait here to die. I pretended to shout a few times, then watched as the fishing boat gradually sailed away. She was not present when the helicopter crashed, so she naturally did not know that danger lurked in the sea. Fan Yuanyuan, seeing that we couldn't catch up to her, provocatively waved at us with a smug expression. In the next moment, a massive shadow leaped high out of the sea. Its enormous form overshadowed the entire ship beneath its body. With a loud bang, the enormous creature disappeared along with the small fishing boat. The sea surface gradually returned to calm. As if nothing had ever happened, Fan Yuanyuan never expected that after surviving on the island for so long, she would die on the way out to sea. I yawned and turned back to go to sleep. The guy who harmed others has been completely dealt with. Zhong Rui and I have restarted our life as a couple with a dog. He jokingly told me that once we get married, we won't need to go on a honeymoon because we've already had one now. Days passed one by one. And by now it was the 463rd day of our being stranded on the island. On the horizon, a giant cruise ship slowly approached. I find it strange, isn't it said that the sea is very dangerous, and that the exploration teams all take planes? I brought a high-powered telescope to take a look, and my heart was instantly scared pale. Inside the cabin of that passenger ship, countless zombies were standing densely packed. Not only that, but the deck was also filled with zombies. There are so many, at least hundreds of them. Now, this ship is heading straight for our island. I quickly called for Zhong Rui, and his expression changed drastically upon seeing it. Our weapons and defenses are simply unable to withstand such a terrifying tide of corpses. There is no time left for us to prepare. We quickly packed our things, took the big yellow dog, and ran up the mountain. Zombies wander aimlessly without a target, so we can only pray that they won't head up the mountain first. As Zhong Rui held my hand and stood on a large rock, I saw the ship crash violently against the edge of the island. The zombies in the cabin surged ashore like a tide. We stood on the mountaintop, watching the hordes of zombies rush towards the shelter we had built. The traps on the outer perimeter had some effect, but not much. The later zombies stepped on the bodies of the ones in front and thus breached the shelter. I sighed. Looks like we'll have to busy ourselves with post-disaster reconstruction again. Zhong Rui comforted me. It's okay, we still have plenty of time. The zombies wandered tirelessly, and soon a few began to head into the mountains. The remaining ones seemed to follow a herd mentality and started to climb the mountain as well. My heart was in my throat. They climbed the mountain slowly, but their sheer numbers were overwhelming. Zhong Rui and I carefully dealt with the isolated zombies while making our way to the summit. The roar in my ears grew increasingly dense, and the number of zombies in my line of sight changed from 2 or 3 to dozens. They possess excellent smell and hearing. No matter how careful we are, we cannot escape their pursuit. I feel despair. Is it true that even in this second life, I cannot escape the fate of death? By the time we reached the top of the mountain, we were already surrounded by zombies. Zhong Rui and I tacitly turned our backs to each other, wielding our machetes and crowbars to fight back. There were simply too many zombies. Just as we managed to deal with one batch, another batch quickly caught up to us. I gradually found it hard to swing the knife. The strong smell of blood in the air made me want to vomit, and my hands were almost numb, only able to strike mindlessly at everything that came close. My exhaustion gave the zombies an opportunity. After I blew the head off one zombie, another one pounced on me from the side. I raised my armored arm to defend, but soon, I was pinned down by the zombies. My protective suit was torn, and I felt the pain of being bitten on my arm. I let out a desperate scream as a burning and painful sensation spread throughout my body from the place I was bitten. I heard De Huang screaming wildly, and with great effort. I opened my eyes to see Zhong Rui knocking the zombie off me, looking at me with a pained expression. Seeing him shed tears, I forced out an ugly smile. I'm sorry, but I'm afraid I won't have time to rebuild after the disaster with you. Just kill me. I don't want to become that disgusting monster. As I watched the zombie that had been knocked away crawl back closer, Zhong Rui still held on to me tightly, and I anxiously shouted, "You have to run." "No," he shook his head, holding me even tighter. "I promised you that I would marry you. I will never leave you." I wanted to say something else, but my vision blurred, and I couldn't utter a word. I felt my memories and perceptions as a human gradually fading away. Is everything about to end? Before my consciousness ended, I heard gunshots. When I woke up again, I was lying in bed. What happened? Didn't I turn into a zombie? Was it all just a dream? I struggled to sit up and found that my wrists were handcuffed. There was an 4 needle in the back of my hand, and only then did I realize I was lying in a hospital bed. "Patient 103 has woken up." I heard someone say this, and then the door to the ward was pushed open, and several doctors in white coats walked in. "Fan Wenwen, right? How are you? Is there anything uncomfortable?" I shook my head in confusion. They asked me a few more questions and then uncuffed me. "Congratulations, Miss Fan Wenwen, welcome back to this world as a human." I was on the road when they told me everything about the zombie virus. This virus originated from scientific research in a certain Western country and, after an accidental leak, infected many people. At first, there was an incubation period, and unaware carriers of the virus spread it to various countries, infecting even more people. After the outbreak of the zombie virus, the country took immediate control measures, but due to the unprecedented nature of the crisis, they were unable to suppress it right away. In the end, our country chose a strategy of retreating to advance, first establishing shelters at sea and then continuously sending personnel to liberate heavily affected areas. Just a month ago, the country finally developed a vaccine to combat the virus and began comprehensive and large-scale rescue operations. Although this vaccine is not foolproof and is only effective if administered within an hour of infection, when the rescue team found us, Zhong Rui and I had just been transformed. They repelled the zombies that were attacking us and rescued me, Zhong Rui, and De Huang, who had been bitten, administering the vaccine and bringing us to the safe zone. When I was discharged from the hospital, I still felt a bit dazed. Standing at the hospital entrance, watching the bustling traffic on the street, I suddenly had a sense of unreality. When a gentle and familiar voice sounded from behind me. I turned around abruptly and saw Zhong Rui holding De Huang, smiling as he walked towards me. I could no longer control myself and ran towards him, hugging him tightly. We kissed passionately, unwilling to part for a long time. Just thinking about the scene where he willingly accompanied me to death made me cry uncontrollably. He gently stroked my back, wiping away my tears. "Don't cry, Wenwen, don't be afraid." He kissed my forehead and said, "Do you remember what I said back then?" I looked up at him. I said we have plenty of time for post-disaster reconstruction. Now, are you willing to accompany me? I broke into a smile, resting my head on his chest. "I am willing."
That's so sweet.
Off Clean Feel Non-Sticky Mosquito Protection. New Halo Top with delicious mix-ins
Oh
in
my
every
god, it's
bite,
doing it
without
again.
calories.
Okay, let me make sure that I'm still on the same one.
My husband took advantage of me just
Okay. Okay, well this one's a zombie one. Okay. I actually want to listen to this one.
after I gave birth and secretly swapped my child with the other woman's. I took the chance when they weren't looking and swapped the kids back. When the apocalypse hit, I hid with my son in a safety fortress I had prepared in advance, living in peace like in a paradise away from the world. My husband and the other woman used the child to threaten me, demanding I give up the fortress. "If you don't give up the fortress, I'll strangle your real son." I gently rocked my son to sleep in my arms and raised a glass of wine to them, saying, "There are many beasts in this world, but none are as vile as you two." I was reborn. A month before the apocalypse arrived, the heart-wrenching pain made me snap awake, weakly glancing at the nurse bringing me my son, remembering that in my previous life, I never got to hold him until I died. My heart ached and tears fell. Based on the timeline, I knew that his other woman, Chen Chi, was at this hospital too. This was my husband, Shinhai's plan from the start, to swap my real child with his and Qinqi's son. They wanted me to raise their child, while they sent mine to the countryside. A month later, the apocalypse came, and I was the first victim. After I died, I discovered the truth. My resentment was so strong that heaven gave me a second chance. This time, I would make them all pay. Just like last time, Shinhai took my son to go out for a walk. Actually, Qinqi lived next door. When he came back, I found out my son had been swapped. This time, I noticed a small red birthmark on the back of my son's ear, shaped like a tiny heart, but now, that mark was gone. I said nothing, pretending I didn't notice, and carefully fed him. Seeing that I hadn't suspected anything, my husband left in peace. As soon as he was gone, I grabbed his illegitimate child and followed him. Sure enough, he took Qinqi out to dinner, leaving my son all alone in the crib. I immediately swapped the two children back. By the time I returned to the room, tears were streaming down my face as I looked at my son sleeping peacefully in my arms. I kissed his forehead, whispering, "This time, we're going to survive the apocalypse together." A few days later, I was discharged and returned home. Shinhai claimed he was on a business trip and didn't come back. Last time, I thought he was really on a business trip, but now I realize he was just using it as an excuse to stay with Qinqi. Before he left, he brought my mother-in-law and sister-in-law over to take care of me during my postpartum period, but they didn't care about my well-being at all. Instead, they constantly made things difficult for me. My mother-in-law always said how she got up and worked the next day after giving birth to Shinhai and his sister, while I had been lying in bed for days. My sister-in-law would sprawl on the couch, watching her favorite variety shows, never lifting a finger to help. The noise drove me crazy, but I had just given birth, and I was in no position to argue. They didn't cook, so I ordered takeout, which made my mother-in-law complain loudly. I ignored her and kept my focus on the big picture. The apocalypse was coming, and I needed to prepare. Shinhai had completely lost interest in me, so I knew I couldn't count on his money. I had to make my own. Once I had recovered physically, I managed to get him to give me 100,000 yuan for my son's insurance. Then, I asked for another 100,000 for various reasons, buying a new phone for my sister-in-law, gold bracelets for my mother-in-law, and so on. I had saved up some money too, so I now had hundreds of thousands in savings. With this money, I could create a safety fortress. Just as I was about to take action, Qinqi suddenly showed up. Shinhai said his mother was too old to help, and his sister wasn't married and didn't know how to take care of a child, so he decided to hire a nanny. Qinqi was the nanny, and she wanted to move in officially. I knew what she was up to but acted like I was suspicious. Asking why she wanted to be a nanny, she casually replied that she had just had a baby, but because her family was poor, she had to send the child to her in-laws in the countryside. I couldn't help but laugh inwardly. If they knew they had sent their own flesh and blood away, I wonder how they would feel. I let her stay, which worked out as I prepared to leave. Every day, I watched her spoil my son, and it made me want to laugh. Shinhai and his family treated my son like a treasure, especially Shinhai, who even gave him 30% of the company's shares. But none of that mattered to me, because in the apocalypse, food is what really matters. With them looking after my son, I was free to focus on setting up my safety fortress. I rented a friend's villa in the mountains. It was isolated and perfect for what I needed. My
I've heard
friend
this
had
one
mentioned
before,
that
but I
rabies
like
was
it.
spreading overseas, so it confirmed the apocalypse was truly coming. To prepare for it, I sped up my plans. The villa was like a castle, and I quickly made it secure, with high-level windows, doors, and electric fences. I stocked up on food, and there was a well for water. The real advantage was the huge basement, which was perfect for storing supplies. I also contacted some suppliers to buy food, pretending it was for a rural guesthouse project. They didn't question me, and everything was set. The apocalypse was only about 10 days away, and I had everything ready. When I was almost done, I hurried home, worried my son was hungry. As soon as I entered, I heard a crash. A cup shattered at my feet, and I jumped in shock. Inside the room, besides my mother-in-law's twisted face, there was also a burly man. When I saw his face, I froze, shaking all over. It was Qin Tian, the man who had killed me in my past life. During the apocalypse, when when we were trapped at home with no food. And zombies were outside. He suggested killing me. He dragged me into a room, raped me, and then dismembered my body. Even now, I still remember the pain and humiliation from that moment. My so-called in-laws had watched it all, secretly relieved that they were still alive. I didn't dare to look at him, but I could feel his cold and vicious gaze on me. Luckily, my sister-in-law came out of the room and threw herself into his arms, wrapping her arms around his neck. She looked at me proudly and said, "Lin Jinjin, I won't allow you to look at my dear even one more time. If you do, I'll gouge your eyes out. Yeah, trash belongs with trash." I didn't say anything and went to the kitchen to prepare dinner for them. While I was at it, I checked the food in the fridge and the pantry. Just like last time, there's enough for a few days, but not much more. The rice is running low. Last time, when I saw the rice getting low, I bought 2 bags and some noodles. Those things helped us get through almost 2 months, but this time, I don't want to buy more. Let's see how long they can last. Chin-Chi stayed in the room to comfort the child, never coming to the kitchen. As soon as I finished cooking, she came out and handed the baby to me. "Jinjin, I was worried the baby might be hungry while you were gone, so I fed him. He drank and then fell asleep." She said this with a provocative smile, but I didn't bother to argue. Now wasn't the time to fight. I had to wait. I smiled and said, "Thanks so much." Behind me, I heard her stomping in frustration. The next morning, I left the house, saying I was going to buy some gold jewelry for my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. My mother-in-law was angry at first, but when she heard that, her face lit up with pleasure. She said, "You're really tough, huh? Already out partying after just half a month. Come back early and make lunch." I quickly nodded and promised to serve the family well. She was satisfied and nodded her approval. I turned away and smirked. If everything went well with the villa today, I'd move out in 2 days, all morning. The things I bought were delivered. To avoid exposing the basement, I had them leave everything in the living room, right by the door to the basement. After they left, I checked to see if I had missed anything. Apart from the usual food, I bought formula and diapers, enough for my son for the next 3 years. I also realized I needed some crossbows and staple guns, so I bought lots of vegetable seeds, cucumbers, eggplants, peppers, loofahs, various greens, and beans. This way, I could grow my own food in the villa's yard. I wasn't sure how long the apocalypse would last, but I had to plan for the long term. Looking at the small swimming pool in the yard, I suddenly had an idea and ordered hundreds of fish. Since I had the fish, I also ordered chickens and ducks, 10 of each. I didn't bother with geese. I still had bad memories of running from them when I was little. Time was getting late, but I still had to wait for the
Scientists now believe early dementia symptoms are caused by leech-like toxins in the brain. Did you know your memory might not be failing at all, but instead reacting to something toxic that's built up in your brain for years? Most people don't know this, but the real reason behind forgetfulness, brain fog, and even early dementia has less to do with age or genetics, and more to do with a hidden issue inside your brain. Here's the problem. No matter what memory pills you try, or how many brain
for the afternoon deliveries. I quickly ordered takeout for my mother-in-law and sister-in-law and called her to say I hadn't found anything suitable yet and would continue shopping. She couldn't hide her joy, but scolded me for being cheap, saying I was already thinking about partying again. She warned me that if I dared to cheat her son, she'd kill me. I comforted her a little and hung up. When the afternoon delivery arrived, I bought 2 gold necklaces from a jewelry store and 2 similar fake ones from a street vendor. I kept the real ones for myself and put the fakes in a box with the receipt to give to my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. They're good at switching things around. If they can swap my son, a necklace swap shouldn't be a big deal, right? When my mother-in-law and sister-in-law saw the necklaces, their eyes lit up. They kept looking and touching them, finally putting them in the box. My mother-in-law said she'd wait until my sister-in-law got married to wear it and show it off. My sister-in-law happily said, "Gold's so expensive now. You're really good to me, sister-in-law." My mother-in-law's face darkened, and she sarcastically said, "Where's the goodness? It's your brother's money. If you want to thank someone, thank your brother." I didn't argue and took the baby from Chin-Chi to my room. Chin Tian had already left. The house was too small for all of us, and last time, Chin Tian stayed because the neighborhood was suddenly hit by a zombie outbreak. thinking of this. I quietly asked a friend how things were abroad, but after a long time, I still hadn't gotten a reply. I had a bad feeling about it. I checked my phone again, and news about rabid dog attacks was starting to spread online. I was shocked to see that the apocalypse was coming much sooner than I expected. No way. I have to leave with my son first thing tomorrow. Looking at my soft and pink son in my arms, I gently stroked the heart-shaped birthmark behind his ear, filled with unspoken hatred. Early the next morning, I got up and was about to leave when my mother-in-law saw me. She asked where I was going, and I quickly said I was taking the baby for a checkup. The old woman was still suspicious, so I smiled and suggested she come along since I'd have trouble carrying him alone. She immediately agreed. Knowing how hard it was to carry a baby, Chin-Chi hesitated, since she was still supposed to be resting, but my mother-in-law hinted, since you promised to help out as a nanny, you should treat the baby like your own. Only then did Chin-Chi grab her bag and follow me. I drove, and she sat in the back with the baby. I saw how carefully and tenderly she was holding him, and I couldn't help but sneer. I asked, Chin-Jia, you left your own kid back home. Aren't you going to miss him? From the rearview mirror, I saw her face twist into a proud and dismissive smile as she said, that kid's a worthless little thing. If he survives, good for him. She lowered her head, playing with my son, happily saying, our baby's different, he's destined for greatness. I smiled faintly, hoping that one day, when she finds out the truth, she'll still be this smug. At the hospital, I took the baby from her and said, there are too many people here. You go ahead and get a number, and call me when it's ready. She hesitated but saw how serious I was, so she hurried into the hospital. I put my son in the back seat, tied him in with a rope I had prepared, and drove off quickly. I knew Chin-Chi would figure out I was leaving with my son and would call the police. Sure enough, she called soon after, asking where I was. I said my stomach hurt and I was taking the baby home, telling her to take a taxi back. By the time she got home, I'd probably be miles away in the mountains. As I was driving, someone suddenly ran at the car, their face twisted and bloodied. It was a zombie. I panicked and stepped on the gas, hitting the zombie and scaring my son awake, making him cry. I couldn't waste any time. If there were zombies here, things were getting out of control fast. The world was falling apart. Luckily, I soon reached the mountains, where there were fewer people, and I didn't need to worry about Shanghai and the others anymore. I parked the car in the yard, locked the gate, and felt a wave of joy. This time, I had finally escaped. I didn't have to live with those idiots anymore. I went inside, fed my son, and got him to sleep. I must have driven too fast earlier. As he was still twitching in his sleep, I gently kissed his forehead and laid him in the crib I had prepared. I grabbed a quick bite, then started putting everything into the basement. We had so much rice, flour, and oil, we wouldn't run out for years. Just as I was about to start, I got a call from Shanghai. He was panicking, asking where I was, and threatening me if I didn't come back. I thought to myself, I'm not afraid of you. Stop. I cut him off, laughing as I said, Shanghai, I'm just taking my son out for a couple of days. Why are you in such a hurry? Do you think I would hurt him? That one sentence left him speechless. He yelled loudly, I don't care what you're doing, get the kid back here, now. I couldn't be bothered to argue with him. Of course, I wasn't going to tell him the truth. I just cursed him a few times and hung up the phone. Not long after, I got a call from the police, asking where I was and telling me not to act impulsively. I couldn't help but laugh. This Shin guy, he was really trying to use the police to bring me back. I put on a very wronged voice and said, I'm at my in-laws' place, recovering from childbirth. My mother-in-law and her family have been bullying me every day. I just got home from the hospital, and they're forcing me to cook and take care of them. I even started crying a little to sound more convincing. Then I told them seriously, I'm staying at a friend's place for a few days to clear my head. I just hope you all have some compassion and let me rest in peace. The police, hearing me like that, could only offer me some comforting words, telling me to take care and return when I felt better. Of course, I wasn't going back. The apocalypse is coming, why would I go back to die? I wonder if Shanghai was losing his mind, but I was in a good mood. The zombie virus was already spreading, a week earlier than last time, and it was spreading fast. In just one night, it had spread across the country like wildfire. As for how the virus was controlled and finally wiped out, I died too soon to see it, but this time, I was sure I'd be one of the first to see the light of day. After spending the whole day, I managed to move everything into the basement. The basement was well equipped, with a bathroom and even a small kitchen. Looks like it was originally designed as a separate living space. I locked the basement door from the inside. No one above could get in, so even if zombies attacked, I could hide down there. This was my last fortress. Once that was done, I decided to start planting vegetables in the yard. Having lived in the countryside for so long, farming was a piece of cake for me. While I was busy, I suddenly heard a car outside. Could someone be here? I quickly closed the gate and made sure the walls were opaque. I ran upstairs and used binoculars to see. I noticed that the nearby villas were starting to have people move in. It seemed they also thought the outside world was too chaotic and were coming here to take refuge, especially the house next door. They not only came back, but brought several servants with them. They also brought a lot of food, truckloads of it. They parked the truck by the wall, and after a group of people went inside, they chatted and laughed. It was lively, but I preferred peace and quiet. As long as my son was safe and sound with me, that was all that mattered. The house not only had great soundproofing, but also blocked light well. When I closed the curtains, no light could be seen from the outside. In the apocalypse, the scariest thing wasn't the zombies, but people's hearts. It made it look like an empty house, effectively lowering the risk of attracting attention. I was glad I didn't raise roosters. Otherwise the crowing in the morning would give me away. My house was in a unique spot. I could see the yard of the nearby house, but their house was positioned farther back. Even standing on their roof, they couldn't see my yard. That way, my chickens, ducks, and vegetables wouldn't be exposed. On the third day after I moved in, the outside world had completely descended into chaos, just like last time. It came a few days earlier. Luckily, I left in time. If it had followed the same timeline as last time, I'd have been stuck in that house. I quickly opened the security footage on my phone. I'd been too busy these past few days to check it, and now the notification sound was going crazy, especially in the neighborhood group. It was a disaster. Thousands of messages. I didn't even bother looking. It was just people discussing the zombies and spreading rumors. When I opened the home security footage, I couldn't help but smile, just like last time. Chin Tian was stuck in that house. This time, without me around, I was curious how they were going to survive the apocalypse. I calculated that their rice, noodles, and cooking oil probably wouldn't last much longer. They'd probably run out in a few days. By then, even if they dared to go out for food, they wouldn't be able to get anything. Life was pretty comfortable now. Every day, all I had to do was eat, drink, and take care of my son. Even feeding the chickens and ducks had become a fun little task. Compared to before, life was so much better. Because of the apocalypse, the water and electricity in the house had been cut off, but it didn't matter much to me. I had installed a solar panel in the yard in advance. While it couldn't power big appliances like the air conditioner or fridge, it was more than enough for basic lighting and charging my phone. Plus, the noise from air conditioning was too loud. If I turned it on, it would expose me. The weather wasn't a problem for now. Even if it gets hot later, I could just hide in the basement. The TV signal was completely gone, but I could still use my phone, though all major platforms were down. I checked the security footage again. Shanghai's house had completely fallen apart. This time, without me, my mother-in-law became the first to be sacrificed. In the footage, she was screaming, not wanting to go outside. Shanghai, like a demon, was forcing her to go buy food, telling her not to come back if she didn't. Hearing my mother-in-law's cries brought me a strange sense of satisfaction. Last time, she was much harsher when forcing me to do things. As soon as my mother-in-law was kicked out, she ran into zombies. She banged on the door like crazy, and her terrifying screams came through the footage, making my head spin. Finally, her screams stopped, and I could faintly hear the breathing sound of zombies. That was the distinctive sound they made. The people inside the house were terrified. They scrambled to find a place to hide. Luckily, the zombies only hit the door for a while before leaving. The house gradually became calm again. Shanghai sat on the floor, panting, with Chin Chi hugging him. Now, there were 4 people left in the house: Shanghai, Chin Chi, Chin Tian, and Shin Xiaolan. Among the four, Qin Tian had the most power. He had already become the master of the house. After my mother-in-law passed away, he told Shanhai and Qinqi to go out and search for food. Shanhai turned pale, and Qinqi was trembling all over. Qin Tian sneered and said, "If you don't go out for food, are you planning to let me starve to death?" In a panic, Shanhai pulled out his phone, desperately saying, "I'll call that bitch Lin Jinjin right now and have her send us food." Shin Xiaolan and Qinqi both urged him to hurry up and call me. Soon, my phone rang. Shanhai was trying to sound calm, his voice high-pitched like a eunuch, asking where I was. Even without seeing the footage, I could tell something was off. When things go weird, there's always something wrong. I told him I was at a friend's place, and with zombies everywhere, I probably couldn't come back anytime soon. Shanhai asked if we had food. I laughed and said, "Food? Sure, we've got food. Not only do we have food, but there's also plenty of cured meats and sausages." With that, I hung up and immediately called him on video. In the video, I deliberately aimed the camera at the food on the table. There was rice, steamed cured meat, stir-fried vegetables, and even Christian carp soup. The people on the other side were practically drooling. Shanhai swallowed and said, "Honey, could you please send us some food?" I replied, "No way. There are too many zombies outside. I'm afraid if I go out, I won't be able to come back." Shanhai's expression was conflicted for a long time. It looked like he had made up his mind. He gritted his teeth and said, "Then send me your location, and I'll come find you." Let him come find me. What a joke. So, I smiled and said, "That's not going to work. We don't even know when this apocalypse will end. The more people, the more mouths to feed." I said that on purpose, knowing Qin Tian was right next to me, his eyes dark and cold like a snake in the shadows. Before Shanhai could say anything more, I turned off the video and switched back to the surveillance footage. Sure enough, Qin Tian slapped Shanhai hard, knocking him to the ground. Shanhai didn't dare fight back. Qin Tian yelled, "No matter what it takes, we need food, or we'll all die here." Just as I was about to see what they would do next, the screen suddenly went black, probably a power outage on their end, and the backup battery in the camera ran out. But that's fine, I didn't need to worry about them, just focus on my own life. Trust me, after all the suffering I went through in my past life, they're going to face even worse. But my life didn't stay peaceful for long. Maybe this place is remote, so zombies aren't coming yet, but the neighbors were getting restless. The house next door had knocked on my door several times. Luckily, my yard wall is high, with barbed wire on top, and the gate is secure with no gaps. Although they couldn't get in, it made me more alert. While my son was asleep, I set up the crossbow and nail gun I had bought earlier, putting them in easy-to-reach spots. If anyone comes in, I'll just aim for the head. It's a good thing I was on the school shooting team before and even won a few prizes. I can't say I'm 100% accurate, but I'm at least 70 to 80% likely to hit. But plans rarely go as expected. Before the neighbors could make a move, zombies were already here. I stood by the window on the third floor and saw about a dozen zombies stumbling around outside. Their low growls sent chills down my spine. Luckily, it was daytime, and the sun was strong, so the zombies moved slowly. But I didn't dare relax. I thought, this place is so isolated. How could so many zombies show up? There are only a few families here. I silently prayed the zombies would leave soon. After finding nothing here, I glanced at my son. He was eating and sleeping like a little piglet, not causing trouble. As long as I fed him well, he wouldn't cry or fuss, and I had bought him a lot of toys. I hoped we'd be safe through the apocalypse. Later that night, the zombies came alive again, gathering outside my yard. But then the lights in the house next door came on, and the zombies were instantly drawn to it. I stood by the window, barely breathing, watching the zombies rush to the house and pound on the iron door. Bang, bang, bang. I heard several loud bangs. Someone had the idea of using firecrackers to scare them off, but the zombies only paused for a moment before resuming their attack. The people inside looked even more desperate. I could clearly see through my binoculars how they were panicking like ants on a hot pan. Other neighbors hadn't turned on their lights, so they managed to avoid attracting the zombies. They were probably hiding by the window, watching like I was. Suddenly, there was another bang, but this time, I could tell it wasn't firecrackers. Looking through my binoculars, I saw someone firing a gun at the zombies. That was a wake-up call for me. They had guns. It seemed like that family had connections to the underworld. I needed to be cautious, and their shooting was good. 5 shots, and they blew the heads off 2 zombies. After those 2 zombies fell, the others went even crazier. Smashing into the door more fiercely, the shooter fired again, and another zombie's head exploded. Just as I thought they might kill all the zombies, a familiar roar came from the distance. It was more zombies, lots of them, heading this way. My heart sank, and my pulse raced. I nearly collapsed. In my past life, I had seen zombies bite and tear people apart, blood everywhere. It was terrifying. The best option now was to stay hidden and not let them know there were still living people inside. But I still couldn't understand, how could so many zombies have come to such a remote place? Just then, my son woke up, making little noises. I quickly picked him up and fed him, hoping he'd go back to sleep. But he didn't. As soon as I laid him down, he started crying. Even though the house was well insulated, I didn't dare ignore it. I hurriedly picked him up again and comforted him. I kept the lights off at night, and my son seemed to get used to the darkness, slowly calming down in my arms. Once he fell asleep, I snuck back to the window to take another look. I was shocked when I saw what was happening outside. The yard was now packed with hundreds of zombies, all pounding on the door and growling. Even though the soundproofing was good, I could hear them clearly. I wasn't sure how many guns the people inside had, but after firing a few more shots, they turned off the lights and stayed silent. The zombies didn't calm down, though. They kept growling and eventually climbed over the wall into the yard. The people inside grew more desperate, and soon several men were shooting zombies in the yard. It was clear they were a gang, not just a single family, and they had more than one gun. If only I had those guns, I wouldn't be afraid of them. I couldn't help but touch the nail gun and crossbow next to me. They weren't as good as guns, but they were something. The battle between them and the zombies continued all night until the morning. By midday, the zombies started to disperse, hiding in the mountains. After the fight, the family next door had survived, but they lost a lot of ammo. Meanwhile, the zombies had been reduced by dozens. From a distance, I could see some zombies still alive, eating their fallen companions. I hadn't slept all night, too shaken by what happened to close my eyes. After eating a little and feeding my son, I finally lay down next to him to sleep. I'm not sure how long I slept, but I woke up to a strange noise outside the window. I carefully peeked through the curtain and was shocked by what I saw. A drone was hovering outside, spying on me through the window. I quickly lowered the curtain, hoping the drone hadn't noticed me, but the chickens and ducks in my yard might give away my location. Just as I was debating whether to take them down, the drone suddenly flew away. Soon after, I heard a loud, desperate scream, followed by a couple of gunshots. I checked my phone. 3 p.m. The sun was bright, and the zombies wouldn't be active now. It was probably the family next door starting their raid while the zombies were hiding from the sun. Once the drone was gone, I grabbed my binoculars to watch what was going on next door. Sure enough, they were moving around. They had cleared out the zombies and were now looting. I counted the people, about 10 in total, including men, women, and children. The women and kids stayed behind to carry things while the 5 men with guns went out to rob. It was obvious they were beyond redemption. In one afternoon, they had raided 3 homes, and the screams never stopped. I'm angry, but I can't afford to take risks. The first ones to die in the apocalypse are definitely those with too much of a saintly heart. Forget about whether I can beat them or not. Even if I could fight, what would happen to my son if I get hurt? If I'm going to die, I'll make sure I die protecting my son's safety. Maybe I've hidden myself too well, which made them think I'm not a threat, so they saved me for last. They came to find me 3 days later. In the meantime, they killed almost every family around us and looted their food and money, but the zombies didn't decrease. In fact, there were more of them. Though they only came out at night and hid in the mountains during the day, the men came looking for me in the afternoon. I heard them, so I hid by the window with my crossbow aimed at the front door. The walls of my yard are covered with electric barbed wire. They can't get in except through the front door. When they raided the other houses, they came in through the front door with a ladder, but this time, they weren't so lucky because I was ready. One of them climbed over the doorframe. I fired a bolt, hitting him square in the head. He grunted, fell backward, and dropped to the ground. One man down, 4 to go. I heard a gunshot outside. They were trying to break the door down, but that wasn't going to work. My friend's house has explosion-proof doors. Their guns were useless. A moment later, I saw another head carefully poking around. It was the guy with the good aim. I swapped to a nail gun, took aim, and fired 3 shots. He screamed and rolled into the yard, lying motionless. I wasn't going to relax just yet. I quickly ran to the 3rd floor and finished him off with a crossbow. The remaining 3 men outside didn't move, but they didn't leave either. Just as I was about to keep an eye on them, my son started crying. This kid, he never cries at the wrong time. But of course, he had to cry now. It was driving me crazy. I rushed to the 2nd floor and fed him. Suddenly, I saw thick smoke outside. I rushed to the window and saw that the place was on fire, no doubt. It was those 3 men trying to force me out, but they were out of luck. My house isn't just explosion-proof, it's also fireproof. As long as I stay inside, they can't do anything. I have to thank my friend for upgrading the house like this. If it weren't for his money, I wouldn't be so safe, since they couldn't get to me, and the day was getting late. They left reluctantly. Not long after, I heard the sound of a drone outside. This time, I didn't hesitate. I shot it down with my crossbow. Night came, and the zombies gathered in front of my house again. I found it strange. Shouldn't they be gathering around the house of the violent people next door? Or is there something in my house that's attracting them? It made no sense to me. What was even stranger was that the zombies kept circling my house but didn't attack. If they did, the walls wouldn't hold up, even if I stayed inside. If a few hundred zombies attacked my walls day and night, I'd probably last only a short while. For a while, I felt uneasy, but the people next door didn't bother me anymore. The zombies still didn't leave. During the day, they hid in the mountains, and at night, they came near my house. Honestly, as long as they didn't attack, it actually felt safer. The people with bad intentions wouldn't dare come near. I could even sleep soundly at night. But that calm was soon broken. One afternoon, I heard shouting outside. It was Shanhai's voice. "Lin Jinjin, you bitch. Don't think I can't find you just because you're hiding here." Shanhai was here. I suddenly remembered our phones have location sharing. If he could get out of the neighborhood, he could track me. Charging the phone is easy, too. As long as he gets into a car, he can charge it. I went up to the top floor and looked out the window, just in time to see everything outside. There were several cars parked in front of my gate, and about 7 or 8 people standing there. Among them were the 3 men from next door. How did they get involved? Besides Shanhai and the 3 men, there were Qin Tian, Shen Xiaolan, and Qin Qi. Qin Qi was holding a baby. I was distracted by the sight when suddenly, Shanhai hung up the phone and called me on WeChat video. I answered, and he said urgently, "Lin Jinjin, open the door. We're right outside." That was the funniest thing I'd ever heard. When I smiled without saying anything, he got anxious. And the 3 men next door had guns in their hands. It looked like they were forcing Shanhai and the others. They probably tracked me down using the phone, but then were captured by the men next door. I heard one of the armed men whisper, "Didn't you say you could make her open the door? If you don't open it, you're all dead." Shanhai quickly said, "Lin Jinjin, open the door now, or I'll kill your son." He pointed the camera at the baby in Qin Qi's arms. The baby was skinny and dark, crying loudly like it was malnourished. Then, I looked at my own son, chubby and fast asleep. I deliberately said, "Shanhai, you're calling that monkey your son? Do I look like a total fool?" Qin Qi smugly said, "Let me tell you the truth. When you gave birth, I was next door. I switched our kids. This is your real son." Shanhai laughed evilly, his eyes gleaming. "Open the door now, or I'll strangle your son." Seeing their vile faces made me feel satisfied. I put my phone on a stand, slowly poured myself a glass of wine, and shook it at them. "Shanhai, Qin Qi, there are thousands of beasts in the world, but none are worse than you 2 assholes." Shanhai's face twisted with a vicious smile. "I'll count to 3. If you don't open the door, I'll really kill him." "Shanhai, would you really hurt your own flesh and blood?" "Lin Jinjin, I never considered that bastard my son. If it weren't for Qi Qi getting tired, I wouldn't have let you raise him." I didn't get angry. Instead, I smiled and asked, "So, you're not afraid I'll take revenge and kill your real son?" Ha! Shanghai suddenly burst into laughter. "My life's already hanging by a thread. I don't care about him anymore. Turns out, all that talk about fatherly love was just nonsense." I drank my wine in one go, then slowly spoke. "Shanghai, Chin-Chi, I know you switched the babies, so while you were out eating, I quietly switched them back." I aimed the camera at my son and smiled. "Look, this is my son, the one you're holding is your own child. Now, get lost." Shanghai and the others were stunned. He suddenly kneeled, begging, "Wife, please open the door. I'm begging you, we've been through so much. You can't just watch us die." Ha! Now you're talking about being a wife. Seeing me silent, he slapped himself hard across the face. The sound of each slap was so clear, it even hurt me through the screen. I gave him a cold smile and teased, "Shanghai, honestly, I hate the other woman more than I hate you." As soon as I said that, he turned the camera toward Chin-Chi and slapped her across the face. "You cheap woman, it's all your fault for seducing me. Otherwise, how could I have done something wrong to my wife? I'll kill you and your bastard child." While hitting Chin-Chi, he kicked her child away, and the poor kid hit the ground without even a cry. Once he'd beaten Chin-Chi so badly she was lying motionless on the ground, her face swollen like a pig's. I just waved at him with a smile and ended the call. I could still hear his angry shouts through the thick bulletproof glass. What I didn't expect was that the zombie horde suddenly went wild outside. It wasn't even dark yet, but for some reason, the zombies went crazy, rushing out of the woods. My husband saw that I wasn't suspicious and left, feeling relieved. Yuan Song, Qin Tian tried to get into his car to escape, but there were too many zombies. His car was flipped over, and he was dragged out and bitten to death. The chaos outside continued for an hour before it finally calmed down, but after killing them, the zombies collapsed on the ground, turning into mush. It took me a while to realize what had happened. I turned on the radio, and to my surprise, I heard a long-awaited voice. "Hello to all surviving residents, this is the official radio station. After our efforts, we have developed a drug to kill zombies." That's when I remembered there was a helicopter flying overhead earlier, spraying mist down. Right after that, the zombies charged out of the woods and started attacking Shanghai and the others. Though the crisis was over, I still didn't dare to go outside. Over the next few days, helicopters passed by a few more times, and TV and communication signals were fully restored. Phones and computers were back to normal, and social media platforms were full of bright red posts. Countless survivors left messages, thanking the government for not giving up and giving everyone a second chance at life. Just then, I got a message from a friend. Their communication equipment had broken down earlier, but it had just been fixed. I replied to let them know I was safe, compared to them. I was lucky since our communication had still worked, though barely. When I went to pick up my friend, I realized my car was covered in blood and flesh. That's when I remembered the zombie I'd hit when I first arrived here. Maybe that's why more zombies kept coming afterward. Maybe that's why they didn't attack me. I cleaned off the mess and drove to pick up my friend. From that moment on, my life was about to enter a new, beautiful chapter. I hope that everyone who survived this catastrophe will have a peaceful and happy life ahead.
If you're having trouble sleeping, you got to stop sleeping on magnesium. I'm Daniel, the founder of Organics Ocean, and magnesium is a mineral that can help with not only sleep, but stress and muscle cramping. And magnesium glycinate is the preferred magnesium due to its incredible absorption rate. Now, not all magnesium glycinate is made equally, so stay away from magnesium sources.
You know what? Let's do the final. No, because that's an hour and a half. Well, actually, you know what? I guess that's actually the perfect amount of time. Okay, let's do this one. This one is on Last Haven. Game Apocalypse. Nephew destroyed my account as realities merged. NPCs protected me while family perished.
My nephew destroyed my game account with 10,000 hours of playtime. He controlled my character to massacre the entire tribe, mocking me for being naive and foolish enough to max out the favorability of ordinary NPCs. My mother also slapped me, shielding him protectively in her arms. She said it's just a stupid game, nowhere near as important as blood-related family. But they didn't know that the game would merge with the real world, and all NPCs would descend upon reality. What they personally destroyed wasn't the slim chance of survival I had worked 8 long years to obtain, it was their own lives. When I returned home, I noticed someone had tampered with the game cartridges in the cabinet. I immediately turned on the computer to check the account. Thankfully, the save file was still there. Wait, no. After witnessing the devastating situation in the game, my whole body started trembling violently. The once peaceful village was now filled with charred houses. The NPCs I usually see were standing dumbfounded in place, covered in wounds and blood. I tried to approach them, but their expressions remained blank as they retreated several steps in apparent terror. These were just ordinary NPCs without any boss-level abilities. If someone swung a blade at them, they could only endure it helplessly, even with their intelligence. They couldn't comprehend why someone who had smiled at them for so long would suddenly raise a butcher's knife against them. My heart feels as if it's being torn apart. The game is set up to be extremely realistic. Some can endure bleeding and injuries, but if not treated in time, these NPCs will die and be replaced by randomly generated new characters. After all, with their identical faces, no one would care anyway. Except for me. I've played this game for a full 10,000 hours. Every flower and tree inside, I've watched grow from nothing. Every day I greet the NPCs inside, and for those without names, I've given them code names. After enduring prolonged calamities, we finally managed to survive on this harsh land and enjoyed a period of peaceful years. It could have continued like this forever, but now, everything has been destroyed. The instigator didn't even show the slightest hint of remorse. He used the blood from slaughtering NPCs as paint to cover the entire wall with profanities. Naya Naya Naya. So-and-so was here. Also, Auntie here didn't like the junk in your backpack. So I destroyed it all. You're welcome. My gaze froze on the term, Auntie. The culprit behind all this was my nephew, too. I stormed into the living room with overwhelming fury. My mother had just finished cooking and brought the dishes to the table, tearing off a whole chicken leg for my nephew. Here, little treasure, have this chicken leg. Grow up big and strong. My nephew immediately reached out to take it and began chewing heartily without a second thought. The mother looked at him with loving eyes and scolded jokingly, Grandma's cooking is delicious, isn't it? What's the hurry? The remaining chicken leg is yours too. Since childhood, Mother always gave the chicken legs to my elder brother, never to me, and now it's the same tradition with my brother's son. On what grounds? With old and new grievances intertwined. I grabbed him by the collar and dragged him toward the dining table. Slamming him onto the floor, my mother screamed and rushed over. Rain, what are you doing? My nephew cried in pain, kicking at me wildly and scratching me with his long nails, leaving several bright red marks on my elbow. His scream was so piercing it felt like it would rupture my eardrums. Evil ant, stinky ant, trying to steal my chicken leg. You vile woman, drop dead already. Just as I was about to hit him, my mother slapped me hard across the face, swift, decisive, without hesitation. It seems the choice between me and her grandson is quite obvious. Taking advantage of my daze, she swiftly snatched her nephew from my arms, cradling him protectively while blowing on him with tender concern. She glared at me furiously. Have you lost your mind? This is your nephew. If you have any grievances, direct them at me. It's just a chicken leg. Look at your petty, calculating behavior. Have I ever shortchanged you or what? Going crazy for no reason all day long. I pulled out my game console and spoke coldly, word by word. Who cares about chicken legs? Ask your precious grandson what he's done. Did I ever allow him to touch my things? He destroyed 10,000 hours of my gaming progress. A flicker of guilt flashed across my mother's face, but it vanished in an instant. Then she started shouting even louder. What's the big deal letting your nephew play with it? What's so precious about your stuff? You throw a fit over the slightest touch. After all the years this family raised you, and now you're making trouble for your own family. What a sin. With his grandmother backing him up, The nephew's previously aggrieved expression vanished completely, revealing a triumphant smirk. He chimed in with my mom, exactly, Auntie, your stupid game isn't even fun anyway, but you can kill NPCs. They don't even fight back. It's hilarious, the boy snickered, revealing 2 large front teeth like a cunning rat in a ditch, his tone dripping with nonchalance. But not as ridiculous as you, Auntie. You actually had nothing better to do than max out the affection levels of these trash NPCs. Since you're so bored, it shouldn't matter if you start over from scratch. I clenched my fists. I was afraid that if he said one more word, I wouldn't be able to stop myself from going to the kitchen to get a knife, pulling out his tongue, and cutting it off. I held back again and again before finally pushing them out the door with all my strength. Get the hell out of my house, both of you.
Close the gate, close the gate. Okay, phew, that was close. Let's get these +6 troops. Nice, I can get the shotgun upgrade next, but the gate closed on me. I gotta destroy more enemies. Okay, the enemies are being destroyed. I need the gate to flip back. Perfect, let's try to get the shotgun upgrade, and I got it. Now I'm shooting way faster and doing a lot more damage. The gate opened again. Oh no, let's destroy the enemies. Come on, the boss is approaching. I really need that gate to
I
close
hate
again.
this. It's
One more
not
time,
even
and
real
nice, the gate.
gameplay whenever they
Both
start
of
doing
you.
that.
Don't even think about crossing this threshold again. My nephew shrank back at my roar, then opened his mouth and began to wail theatrically. Grandma, she's being mean to me. Why won't she let me in the house? What right does a woman have to own property? This is my house, mine. My mom's face darkened after being publicly humiliated. She shook off my hand and shrieked, "You've grown too big for your boots. Buying a house in secret and not letting us live here. Yet your brother still doesn't have a place of his own. How can you be so selfish? It was just playing with your games, and you took it out on your nephew." Her face flushed red as she snatched the game console from my hands and hurled it out the window with all her might. "It's just a stupid game. How could it ever compare to family bonds thicker than blood?" 3. I rushed downstairs in a hurry. Fortunately, no one was injured by the object my mother threw from above. But that game console lay lonely on the lawn, having fallen from the 28th floor, its parts shattered into pieces, completely unrecognizable. Despite the sharp fragments, I carefully gathered them up. My mother and nephew arrived as well. My mother sneered, "It's broken beyond repair. And you still want to fix it? You're truly obsessed." My nephew hid behind my mother and said hypocritically, "Auntie, I'm really sorry. I didn't realize you treasured that game so much. It's all my fault, and I even caused Grandma to argue with you." My mother immediately waved her hand and said, all right. Did you hear Jackson apologize to you? Let's just drop this matter and move on. We'll still be coming to your place on weekends since it's closer to Jackson's tutoring class. So the kid can sleep in a bit more in the mornings." Seeing me ignore her and continue collecting the fragments of the game console, she said impatiently, "Hey, I'm talking to you. Are you pretending to be deaf?" I straightened up and said calmly, "Are you feeling quite pleased with yourselves? I could easily pick him up and throw him downstairs just like you threw my game console. Do you know why I didn't do that? It's not because I pity his worthless life, but because I have more public decency than you. I don't care if your grandson dies, but other people's bright futures shouldn't be ruined in an instant. Did it ever occur to you that throwing a game console could kill someone?" Hearing my words, a cold glint flashed in my young nephew's eyes as he said sinisterly, "Are you really going to let Grandma go to jail? If someone actually gets hit when the police come, I'll say it was you who threw it, with no surveillance cameras. Who can prove otherwise? At such a young age, he's already this malicious." My face turned icy as I clenched the sharp shard in my hand, advancing step by step. My mother shielded him behind her like a hen protecting her chicks. She shouted guiltily, "Rain, kids are just fooling around. Why bother taking it seriously?" I smiled.
I
"Me
don't know,
taking
that
it
sounds pretty
seriously? Of
serious.
course I won't take it seriously with him. Letting him die like this would be too easy. What if I told you that the game you destroyed will eventually merge into our world?" I walked over and patted my nephew's shoulder, leaning down to whisper in his ear, "The time will come when the fear of death will be yours to face." My nephew puckered his lips to spit on my face, but I slapped him before he could react. Staggering, he was pushed to the ground and burst into loud, pitiful sobs. This time, my mother didn't dare provoke me. She cursed, "Psycho," before grabbing my nephew and storming off while muttering complaints. Only I stood still, holding those fragments, gazing up at the sky. Dark clouds gathered, with thunder and lightning flashing. In just a few short hours, this place seemed to have transformed into another world. Just a mere brat. I could have easily destroyed him, but I refused to. I want to watch him writhe and struggle in despair as his neck is choked. I want to see him regret in agony, paying the price for his deeds, only to meet his end with unwillingness, just like those NPCs he casually killed. For, overnight, people were shocked to discover that the water flowing from their faucets wasn't water at all. It was blood, thick, viscous blood. Someone had left a faucet running, and the house's floors were flooded with blood, spilling out into the hallway. In his confused dream, he smelled a strong, pungent scent of blood. When he opened his eyes, a metallic sweetness tingled in his throat. Before he could react, a surge of crimson liquid choked back into his nasal passages. Before this person could comprehend what was happening, they suffocated to death right in their own home. This is the first bizarre case of death caused by the Bloodwater disaster. On TV, the host's voice carried a tension of forced composure. We have not yet determined the cause of this anomaly. This is an isolated case. Citizens need not panic. Relevant personnel are urgently inspecting the reservoir. His reassurance didn't work, as the internet had already exploded, not just in City A where I live, but across the nation. Even globally, blood-red water emerged even from dry desert wells that had no water sources. Apart from the remaining water in this world, there are no clean water sources left. I answered the phone call from my mother. Her tone carried an unusual note of pleading. Rain, do you still have clean water at your place? I glanced at the few barrels of water that had just been delivered days ago and said without changing my expression, no. Why? My mother stammered, and no, it's just, oh, just tell me straight if you have any or not. Before she could finish, the phone was snatched away by my father. How many barrels of water do you have left at home? Hurry up and send them to your brother's place, he said in an imperative tone. Jackson hasn't bathed for days, and you, as his aunt, don't even feel sorry for him. The water I use to sustain my life, he wants me to use it to bathe my nephew. I find it absurd and ridiculous. If he needs water so badly, then his parents should try harder to find some for him. After all, it's not like there's no way. There is indeed a way. Along with the Bloodwater disaster came a sudden influx of water carriers. They walked the streets wearing masks, muttering strange words. Water, clean water. A bold child stepped forward to ask, only to see them draw knives and slit their own wrists. What flowed out from within was not gushing blood, but clean water. As the news spread, crowds gathered around these eerie water carriers. The water-starved people paid no heed to whether drawing water would harm the carriers' bodies. They even brought their own knives to stab into the water carriers' bodies. All who obtained the water left with smug satisfaction. But not long after, those who came into contact with the water died at home, some with ruptured intestines, others covered in festering sores. The remaining people felt a survivor's relief, grateful they hadn't harmed themselves by fetching water. Experts worked around the clock to study these eerie water carriers, desperate to extract from their blood the secret to immunity. Before the results come out, even if people know how to fetch water, they wouldn't dare act recklessly. My father sensed my malice and began shouting angrily, all you know is how to argue back. At this critical moment, families should help each other. Let's see if your brother will lift a finger when you're dying of thirst. Just wait to die at the hands of those water delivery workers. Why do you assume I'll die, father? I found it amusing. Do you know what else those water delivery workers often say? Humph, praying for rain. This gloomy sky is overcast, yet stubbornly refuses to shed a single drop. I want it to rain even more than those weirdos do. I shook my head. No, they're not praying for rain. They were calling my in-game name, Rain, 5. Before the water supply ran out, I left home to find those water delivery workers. Hey, listening to you guys keep talking. Are you thirsty for water? I shook the bucket in my hand, signaling them to come and drink. The masked water carriers paused their steps, tilted their heads to look at me, then hurriedly gathered to drink. Water, clean water. This phrase wasn't about them delivering water. They were just too thirsty and asking passers-by for help. After drinking half the bucket of water, they looked at me somewhat sheepishly. We've finished all your water. What will you do now? One person extended their wrist and said anxiously, we'll give it back to you. We have plenty of water in our bodies. Don't worry. You won't die of thirst. I smiled and asked, if I drink your blood? Will I die? He shook his head desperately. And no, those who died were the ones who refused to give us water. You're different. You're a good person. We won't harm you. I still didn't move. Then if I drink your blood, will you die? The man puffed out his chest proudly. No way. We're strong. If it's just a little, we can recover completely. Hearing him say this, I brought all these water delivery workers back home with me. There were so many of them that I poured a full 10 buckets. And even went out to give some to the scavenging elderly nearby. One good turn deserves another. Without giving, one seeks to take from others. Isn't it only natural to face retribution then? How can someone not understand such a simple truth? I stopped by the grocery market on my way. The usual hustle and bustle was gone, with only a few scattered stalls remaining. The lobsters and king crabs that used to fetch high prices were now foaming in dry tanks, cheaper than a wild weed. I bought a lot to take home, and the water delivery workers happily feasted. The room was filled with the aroma of butter as they devoured the food, their eyes sparkling. Ma'am, you're so kind, such a good person, and your cooking is delicious. It reminds me of someone else. I knew who they were referring to, but didn't respond, just gently ruffled their hair. I also received news from my brother's side. I heard they initially splurged on water, convinced I would come to deliver more. After I refused, they turned to malicious intent. My brother forcibly broke in, violently assaulted the lone male neighbor, and stole his meager remaining water supply. Without water, the young man slowly died at home, with the stench of his corpse lingering daily. He was just an ordinary office worker employed at a nearby factory. In this bustling city, he was a stranger with no relatives or friends, even if he died violently at home. The news would take a long time to reach distant provinces thousands of miles away. My brother said triumphantly, insignificant ants like these are easiest to handle. After this disaster passes, even those seeking revenge won't know what hit them. The picture he posted on his social media was of my nephew taking a bubble bath. He played with the rubber duck in the water, displaying an innocent demeanor completely unaware of worldly affairs. Water obtained at the cost of others' lives was being wasted like this. I lit a stick of incense on behalf of that young man, my naive elder brother. How could you think there was only the disaster of bloody waters? 6. After half a month of gloomy weather, there finally came an exceptionally heavy rainstorm. The rain poured for 7 full days, and the river water became clear again, as if the once thick blood-red waters were just an illusion. Meanwhile, people were astonished to discover that after the heavy rain, the land suddenly teemed with countless frogs. They densely covered every corner, their skin marred by ugly scars, their cheeks puffing rhythmically as they emitted deafening, rib-bit cries. Frogs, frogs, frogs everywhere. There were simply too many. Terrified and horrified, the city launched a massive frog extermination campaign. Yet every man who came into contact with the frogs found his belly slowly swelling up like a balloon. As if some life was gestating inside, the second calamity, the plague of frogs, descended in an utterly terrifying form. My brother also joined this bloody campaign, bringing along my nephew. My brother taught my nephew from childhood that true manhood lies in understanding slaughter. They killed so many frogs that their bellies swelled larger than other men's, like carrying multiple fetuses, ready to burst at any moment. My brother was nearly desperate, and my nephew clutched his swollen belly. Wailing in terror, my mother was so panicked that she called me for help again, asking me to think of a solution. I scoffed and casually lied. What can I do? I can barely take care of myself. There were so many frogs that they even crawled into the house through the exterior pipes, leaving sticky mucus everywhere. But those water delivery workers were still staying at my place. When they saw the first frog crawling in, they filled a vat with water on the balcony. It wasn't clear water flowing from the tap, but blood from their slit wrists. They said even though the blood flood had passed, the curse on the water source remained. Ordinary water is useless for these frogs, only unpolluted water will do. At the sight of this basin of water, dense crowds of frogs leaped into it. My house remained dry and comfortable. I didn't go out, surviving on the food I had stockpiled during the previous bloodwater disaster. Perhaps my balcony was too clean, making someone notice something unusual. Knock, knock, knock. Someone knocked on my door. 7. Through the peephole, I saw many men with swollen bellies. I asked calmly, "Can I help you? Please help us. These frogs have ruined us." "Ma'am, You can't just stand by and watch us die. Open the door for us. I saw familiar faces, including residents of this building. They were certain I was a defenseless woman living alone, which is why they dared to come looking for trouble. I directly refused them. Sorry, I can't open the door. There are frogs everywhere outside. It's terrifying. Seeing that I wasn't fooled, they began roughly using tools to bang on my door. You selfish bastard. You knew the solution for the frogs but kept it hidden from us, didn't you? A weak little bitch like you, acting all tough here. You probably don't even know there's another solution, do you? We're being merciful by not using that method on you. So don't push your luck. I know what they're talking about. This is the only method recently discovered by accident that can counteract the side effects brought by the frog plague. Only men carry frog eggs, and to resolve this terrifying disaster, they simply need to have sexual intercourse with a woman to transfer the eggs into her womb, making her bear the burden. Many heartless men, to avoid suffering, either force or deceive their wives and mothers into taking on their burden. Some even take to the streets or break into homes to hunt for female victims. That's how my brother made his wife take on his suffering. His belly had shrunk, but his nephew was too young, and there was no solution in sight, which is why he had been so anxious. The man outside the door was cursing while taking action. I watched quietly through the peephole without responding. The NPCs behind me were clearly angered by the group's inexplicable provocation. They don't care about their own injuries, but when they see someone trying to harm me, their facial expressions twist with extraordinary fury. A female warrior approaches carrying an ancient giant axe that appeared out of nowhere, about to turn the door handle. But I stop her, shake my head at her, and make a SH gesture. It's all right, sweetheart, just watch. 8. Sure enough, those men collapsed backward as if exhausted after just a few strikes. They seemed unaware of their terrible physical condition, still believing themselves as invincible as they imagined. My stomach hurts so bad. Within seconds, their faces turned pale, dripping with cold sweat, and they began screaming in agony. Everyone was writhing in pain on the ground, their desperate screams and wails nearly shattering the ceiling of the hallway. Only then did I open the door with a smile. Don't you understand basic scientific knowledge? Don't you know pregnant women shouldn't engage in strenuous exercise? The men on the ground were completely exhausted, yet still stubbornly struggling. What nonsense are you spouting, you witch, you devil? How could a man possibly get pregnant? Damn you and your pregnant women. I watched the large pools of blood spreading beneath their trousers, shook my head, and said regretfully, originally, if you had just stayed quietly at home, nothing would have happened. Even if you killed the frogs, as long as you expelled the frog eggs, you would have been fine. The so-called curse-like suffering you're enduring is merely the inevitable path every pregnant woman must take, yet you're all so impatient, rushing around trying to solve it immediately. Well, this is it. The baby is going to be miscarried, but there are no doctors here. No one will help resolve your accident, even if there were doctors. If they asked me to choose between saving the mother or the baby, I would definitely say, in their eyes that still held a glimmer of hope, I cruelly delivered the final verdict. Screw you bastards. Those people heard my words, their eyes bulging with rage, yet powerless to stand and fight back. Suddenly, the man writhing in pain on the ground stopped moving. He saw the water delivery workers at my doorstep. Both men and women had identical faces. Staring fixedly at the group of people on the ground, they pointed at me and screamed in terror. It's those monsters with water for blood. So you're the mastermind behind all this. You're in league with them. You're the one who brought the calamity foretold in the scriptures into this world. You deserve to die. I lowered my head, watching their death throes with great interest. Do you really think it's my fault? Without your desires, how could sin ever take root? I watched as they took their last breath before me and let out a light chuckle. Don't worry, this is just the beginning of my revenge. 9. The men who came looking for trouble could recognize this as the calamity foretold in the scriptures, so naturally others noticed it too. Netizens have sparked large-scale discussions about these two sudden disasters. The first disaster was the plague of blood, the second was the plague of frogs. Haven't you heard the story of the 10 plagues of Egypt? It's terrifying,
Oh
and
god,
this is
we're
only the
bringing that
beginning.
into it.
I've heard of the 10 plagues of Egypt, but not from any religious scripture. It was from a very obscure niche game. I know. Is it Appocolypse, the Revelation? That game was so mystical, opening with something like, "Please play seriously, because the game world will merge with reality in 8 years." I remember this game too. It's about surviving 10 plagues with a group of indigenous people and then rebuilding their homeland.
I've been playing Ethereum Restart pretty much non-stop for the past 48 hours. I've been having a great deal of fun with this game. The thing I've been enjoying the absolute most has been team development, character building, in particular the module and shell system. I love the variety of different modules. This is their armor and set system, by the way. The 7-day check-in in this game is actually insane. And then
But it was so long that I never made it to the later
Most
parts.
of all,
Why
even.
bring up games when the discussion is about disasters? LOL. Do you actually believe game worlds could merge with reality? Because the scripture's prophecies didn't mention those water carriers from the Bloodwater Plague. Don't you think their appearances are strange? They all look exactly the same, like NPCs in a game, by sheer coincidence. They stumbled close to the truth. However, this discussion did not attract much attention. After confirming that it might be the 10 plagues of Egypt descending, all departments began preparing preventive measures for the upcoming disasters. While they were taking action, I was at home repairing the game console. Ever since I picked it up, I haven't stopped working on the repairs. The game console was smashed to pieces, but fortunately all the core components were intact. The reason I picked up the game console again was because I knew the root source of the disaster lay within it. As long as I load the save file and turn off the disaster, I can prevent the subsequent events from happening. But just as I finally fixed the console and was about to re-enter the world, I felt a heavy shadow cast behind me. I realized all those NPCs were silently staring at me from behind, their expressions carrying a subtlety unlike any ordinary day. It suddenly dawned on me that they didn't realize it was my nephew who had carried out that massacre against them, in their memory. It must have been me who betrayed them. 10. Someone even raised a giant axe. Trembling as they approached, I silently took a step back, contemplating how to explain the situation. They got ahead of me, making indistinct sounds in their throats. "Rain, are you Rain?" Their faces looking at me were all identical, creating an oppressive terror. I remained silent under this pressure for a long time before finally admitting it outright. "It's me, but I didn't do the things that hurt you." I was prepared for them not to believe me and to retaliate against me, but those dark, shining eyes looking at me showed no trace of hatred or similar emotions. On the contrary, they gradually filled with tears. "Thank goodness, you're okay." Unexpectedly, they rushed over and hugged me tightly, one embrace after another, warmth radiating from where our skin touched, so comforting. "We knew you wouldn't do such a thing, so we were terrified, not knowing who was threatening you. I came to this world, just to make sure you're safe." The female warrior who raised the giant axe swung the massive weapon again, looking at me with her wet, gleaming black eyes. If anyone bullies you, use this to chop them down." So they raised their weapons not against me, but against my enemies. A bittersweet ripple stirred in my heart. "You don't suspect me at all. Aren't you afraid I might have really betrayed you?" They shook their heads vigorously, speaking in perfect unison for the first time. "We've been close friends for so many years. How could you ever treat us badly?" Friend, this word gently plucked at my heartstrings. In the long, unaccompanied years, they were my only solace and refuge. They tilted their heads and looked at me. "Rain, do you want to re-enter the game to prevent the disaster from coming, even if this world has many bad people? After all, this is still the place where you live, right?" I logged into the game, loaded the save file, and shook my head. No one knows that as long as the game's save exists, I can manually disable disaster permissions to affect reality, but those who deserve punishment haven't met their rightful fate yet. Just accelerating the progress of this game to prevent more innocent people from being harmed. 11. The frog plague lasted for 10 days. While women carry a pregnancy for 10 months, this male pregnancy experience was shortened to 10 days, including civil servants who participated in the frog extermination. Many conscientious men were unwilling to harm others. The pain intensified manifold. But after they expelled and eradicated the frog eggs from their bodies, the frogs vanished completely from the streets and alleys. This was entirely a battle where casualties could have been avoided, yet my brother took great pride in this, claiming he was different from those foolish men. They have wives, yet they refuse to let them endure this hardship. How utterly stupid. At worst, finding a random streetwalker would be better than enduring it yourself. I sat on the bench in the hospital corridor and said coldly, "You made your wife suffer for you. So she ended up in the ICU." My brother's face darkened, and just as he was about to scold me, my mother tugged at his sleeve. "Stop fighting over an outsider, you siblings, how disgraceful," I scoffed. "An outsider? Isn't she my brother's wife and the mother of my nephew?" They all fell silent again, until my nephew was the first to break the quiet. With innocent loudness in his voice, he asked, "If Mom has to stay in the hospital, who's going to cook dinner tonight?" His words made everyone present change their expressions. Even the passing nurses turned their heads and started whispering among themselves. My brother, having failed to vent his anger on me and then being publicly humiliated by his ill-mannered son, immediately flew into a rage and viciously slapped my nephew, scolding, "What a filial son you are! Your mother is sick, and you're still concerned about whether she can cook." My nephew was stunned by the slap and immediately collapsed to the ground, rolling around and
Swarming
wailing
Karen, I'm
loudly,
shivering.
"Grandma's
That's bad.
cooking isn't even good. What's wrong with me?" asking, "You all just bully me." As he kept crying, he probably caught sight of me standing by with a cold smile out of the corner of his eye, and stubbornly lunged at me to grab me. In his eyes, Aunt was the least respected person in this family, unloved by father and mother, yet still having to make way for her brother's life, so it's only natural and justified for him to throw a tantrum at me. "It's all Auntie's fault. It's that damn game of yours that made Mom like this." I raised an eyebrow and gave him a hard kick before he could cling to me. 12, Rain, what are you doing? That kick of mine was no joke. My dad, Mom, and brother all rushed over to protect their family jewels. My mom's face
Yes?
twisted like an angry lioness. "Rain,
Yes.
is what the kid said true?
Yes,
I
hello,
also
Maggie.
remember that damn game console of yours. You even went crazy cursing us back then." My brother looked like he wanted to hit me, but he's too concerned about appearances to make a scene in public, so he just hugged his son and started yelling insults at me, his face twisted in disgust. "Rain, I knew you were crazy, but I never imagined you'd be this insane. We should have sent you to a mental institution long ago. Wasn't it normal for you to get bullied at school? Who told you to be such a freak, obsessing over that bizarre game of yours all day? And now you've even developed some delusional disorder. How dare you lay hands on my son? I'll kill you right now." Seeing so many people backing him up, the nephew began tearfully making his accusations. She even threatened me, saying, "Soon it'll be your turn to face the terror of death. She's the real villain here." They all looked at me, and I innocently spread my hands. "You believe the words of a little kid. What I said was just out of anger. Besides, the authorities haven't even announced where these disasters came from. How could I possibly have that kind of power?" Some other patients who had been listening finally spoke up, and one sister couldn't hold back anymore. "How can you have the nerve to bully a young girl like this? A brat like that should be properly disciplined. What are you causing a scene in the hospital for?" She pointed at the burly man beside her, then looked at my brother with disdain. "My husband is 100 times better than a loser like you. He went to help the neighbors exterminate frogs but ended up getting pregnant himself. I took care of him for 10 days while he kept complaining about feeling awful. Unlike you, who actually made your wife suffer. How shameless." My brother initially wanted to argue back, but the burly man's physique was equivalent to two of him. Like a moving mountain of flesh, he backed down, gave the woman a once-over, and snorted coldly, "Of course, my wife isn't as pretty as you, so she wouldn't fetch as high a price." The once delicate-looking burly man immediately straightened up upon hearing this, clenched his fists, and scowled. "What the hell are you spouting, you wretch? Dare to run your mouth one more time." As sparks flew between the two groups, I slipped into the hospital room. My sister-in-law has been transferred out of the ICU, but it's unclear how much of the outside conversations she heard. That once beautiful and full face had become pale and gaunt. "After all this, do you still intend to keep living with him?" The person on the bed trembled their eyelids slightly but didn't open them, as if this could help them escape reality. I leaned closer to her and sighed. "Marriage is for happiness. And so is divorce." Without another word, I left the hospital room. But the moment I turned away, I thought I saw a clear tear fall from those tightly shut eyes. 13. Thanks to prior preventive measures, the subsequent disasters caused significantly milder effects. The third plague of lice, the fourth plague of flies, the fifth plague of livestock pestilence, the sixth plague of boils, the seventh plague of hail. the 8th plague of locusts, one after another. People survived unscathed and breathed a deep sigh of relief. No one knew this was merely the result of me lowering the game's difficulty. My brother no longer pays attention to these harmless disasters. What's been bothering him lately is that his once obedient wife started demanding a divorce after he was discharged from the hospital. He got beaten up for no reason in the hospital, which already made him furious, and this just made him even angrier. But no matter how he threatened or argued, my sister-in-law would rather die than live with him again. They had a heated argument at home and dumped their nephew. The burden, on me to take care of, my mother secretly made a copy of my house key and barged in forcefully. She rummaged through my things with dissatisfaction. You've made the house a complete mess, yet you say I'm not allowed in. If I don't come in, who's going to clean up for you? Who else has been staying here? I looked at her coldly. A friend, she reacted as if hearing the biggest joke. A friend, Rain, you actually have friends. My nephew giggled too. Auntie's lying. Dad said you've always been a weirdo since childhood, just hiding in your room playing video games alone. How could you possibly have friends? My mother's expression suddenly changed as she scolded, Rain, don't tell me your naive delusions are acting up again, thinking of running off with some random man. I didn't raise you all these years just for you to be taken advantage of by some swine. Her heart ached as she took out all the leftover seafood from the fridge, gritting her teeth in frustration that the food hadn't ended up in her grandson's stomach. Instead of pampering your man with good food and drinks, you might as well spend the money on Jackson. At least our Jackson can support you in your old age someday. Support me in my old age. Will he even live that long? Watching my nephew start eating again as if it were his due, I smiled indifferently. Go ahead and eat. I bought so many hairy crabs and lobsters. There's no way I could finish them all myself. It'd be a waste to just let them sit. My nephew went all out eating, while my mom, thinking she didn't deserve such delicacies, just coaxed him from the side, and all the food ended up in my nephew's stomach. In the middle of the night, my nephew was crying in pain, howling so loudly it woke me up. Between sobs, he yelled, Auntie is trying to kill me. She poisoned the food. Wah! Grandma save me. A pile of dead shrimp and crabs. It'd be a miracle if eating them didn't cause trouble. I maintained a smiling face. How could you say that, Xiao Bao? Auntie is counting on you for her old age. Why would I ever harm you? My mom got so anxious she called my brother over. My brother frantically picked up my nephew, too busy to curse at me, and rushed out the door as soon as he opened it. I blocked the doorway with my arm. He glared at me. Rain, what are you doing? I spoke calmly. Isn't it inappropriate to go to the hospital at this hour? What do you mean inappropriate? Jackson is sick because of you. Are you trying to kill him now? I'll settle this with you later. I still didn't back down, but the disaster is still spreading outside. It's dangerous to go out. Disaster. Those half-baked tricks of yours. I think you've gone crazy from playing too many games. My brother pulled my nephew along and gave me a disdainful look. Rain, you can fool yourself, but don't try to fool me. Jackson said you brought that crap from the game into reality, but even so, you can't do anything to me. Do you think those so-called friends who used to live with you can help you? They just came to take advantage of you before the disaster, and now they've all moved out, haven't they? Besides, someone like you doesn't deserve to have friends. He ignored my attempts to stop him and resolutely rushed out the door. After a moment of hesitation, my mother finally turned back and said to me, Rain, you should go with them too. Seeing that I wasn't moving, she anxiously came to pull me. Like you said, what if there's danger? Shouldn't you help your brother a bit? Don't pull me. I can walk by myself. I frowned and avoided her tugging, flashing an innocent smile before she could get angry. Of course, that's my brother. How could I not go check if he might be in trouble? Only then did my mother follow me out the door, satisfied. She didn't notice the smile that never left the corners of my mouth. How could I not witness the death of someone I despise with my own eyes? 14. The ninth calamity was the disaster of darkness, the loss of sunlight. People accustomed to electricity didn't seem to face much trouble even after losing daylight. Yet darkness can also bring immense danger. In lightless places, it thickens like a sea capable of silently drowning people. On the way to the hospital by taxi, strange sounds came from many unclear alleys on both sides. Crunch, creak, very loud, as if something was being chewed vigorously. My mother, frightened, hugged my nephew tightly and moved to the middle, making me sit by the window. After finally reaching the hospital, she made me stay behind, terrified that her two precious darlings might suffer any harm. The brightly lit hospital dispelled their paranoid worries. My brother waited for the doctor to examine his son while berating me. My son was only at your place for a short while. How could you let this happen to him? I don't care. You're paying the medical bills and my emotional damages. Got it. My mother stayed silent on the side. Seeing she wouldn't intervene, I scoffed. Are we really keeping score between siblings? I didn't mean for Jackson to end up like this. It was Mom who gave him those vegetables. Little did I expect these words to completely infuriate my brother. He sprang to his feet, pointing at me and yelling. Our family has raised you to this age. How much money have we poured into you? If Mom hadn't accidentally gotten pregnant with you, there wouldn't even be a place for you in this family. All the money you've spent should have been mine. Making you pay back this little isn't even being petty. I haven't even settled all those accounts with you yet. People around us started looking over. My mom tugged at my sleeve, signaling me not to argue with my brother, but I stepped away. Fine. Since you love keeping accounts so much, let's settle them one by one. My brother puffed out his chest and said defiantly, you're the one who said it counts. Raising you all these years has cost nearly $1 million, right? I'll consider Jackson's medical expenses as rounding off the debt. Go find $1 million to pay me back. He held out his hand to me. Hand over your bank card. What's the PIN? You can work to pay off the rest you owe me. I blinked. Even if I owe you $1 million. You owe me $10 million. We can't settle it like this. My brother got agitated. Where do I owe you money? Do you know how much Mom and Dad have secretly given me? How could you possibly have $10 million for me to owe? I said calmly. Your son broke my gaming console. The device itself can cover your measly medical expenses, but the account is worth $10 million. By that calculation, you still owe me $9 million. My brother flushed red with humiliation. Your stupid game save is worth $10 million. Who knows more about games? You or me? I shook my head. You just don't get it, do you? This save file really is worth $10 million. Hand over the cash now, and I might consider letting you off. I looked him up and down and clicked my tongue. Too bad you've let yourself go. Smoking, drinking. And from what sis-in-law says, fooling around outside, your organs are probably subpar too. Doubt they'd even fetch $1 million if sold. My brother was spoiled rotten since childhood, and hearing me defy him like this almost made him drop dead on the spot. He charged at me with fists flying, while my dazed nephew opened his bleary eyes and screamed excitedly, Dad, beat her to death. Unfortunately, I easily dodged his attack, and his punch landed on the hospital's white wall, making him squeal in pain like a pig. This time, my mother finally stopped being a cold bystander. She shrieked and rushed to shield my brother. With tears and snot running down her face, she pointed a trembling finger at me. I raised you all these years, and this is how you treat your own family. How dare you, you ungrateful daughter. I couldn't be bothered with their hypocritical act and asked again. A 10,000-hour game save file. I spent 8 whole years on it. You could say it's priceless. I'm only asking for $10 million from you, which is actually a steal. So you're really refusing to compensate me? My brother spat in contempt and sneered. Pay you back for something you can just replay. What's the big deal? You love that damn game so much anyway. You wouldn't mind playing it for another 8 years. I'd rather die than compensate you. I nodded, completely unfazed by his provocation. Fine, you said it yourself. Don't regret it. What could I possibly regret? He didn't finish his words, stopping halfway in terror, because the next second, I reached out and clapped my hands. Crash! As my applause rang out, the glass of the fluorescent tubes shattered piece by piece from far to near. The entire hospital was instantly plunged into pitch-black darkness. 15. In an instant, the entire corridor descended into chaos. What's going on? What happened? Quick, turn on your phone screen. This darkness is terrifying me. My brother yelled at me. Rain. What did you do? Why did the lights go out the moment you clapped your hands? I replied with a smile. Nothing at all. You wouldn't seriously think it's such a coincidence that the lights went out when I clapped, would you? In your words, I'm just a useless otaku who loves playing games. Since you don't believe games can become reality, what does this have to do with me? My brother wanted to keep scolding me, but his voice was drowned out by the panicked crowd. The darkness disaster already arrived long ago, but it never affected power supply before. Could this be a new catastrophe descending upon us? Wait, something's not right. Did you all hear that sound? The noisy chatter of the crowd stopped as everyone held their breath to listen. An eerie silence fell, broken only by the discordant wails of my nephew Jackson echoing through the air. Our family drama had already drawn a crowd, and now people started making snide remarks. Whose child has such bad manners, crying and crying? You'll cry all the luck away. Can you stop making such a racket? There really is something moving over by the stairs. My mother was displeased. Why pick on a child, Jackson? Come here to Grandma. Her words went unanswered as the child's crying suddenly stopped, or rather, another sound answered her instead. Clickety-clack, creak-creak. The furtive sounds we heard while passing the dark alley re-emerged in this confined space. Amplified infinitely by the surrounding silence, someone gulped, their voice trembling. What the hell is making that noise over there? Where are your phones? Turn on the screens. Someone's voice had already cracked. No, have you tried it yourself? Pressing it doesn't light up, not a single glimmer, can't see anything. What the hell is over there? Everyone turned to flee, stumbling blindly in the dark chaos, while I stood quietly in place, watching them trip and tumble over each other in their scramble. Honestly, they should be grateful they can't see right now. If they could see what I see, they'd probably be too terrified to even think about running, frozen in sheer horror. Those eerie NPCs had somehow appeared right beside my nephew
Thank you for
without warning.
asking.
They gripped his cheeks and yanked out the noisy tongue between them. Their hands melted into dark, viscous liquid, and that crimson thing instantly detached. Click, clack, crunch. Crackle, it tumbled in the palm, where skin contact should have been gentle, yet produced eerie sounds of sharp teeth gnashing. Before death, my nephew gained the same ability as me to see in the darkness. He saw the faces of those NPCs and realized they were identical to the ubiquitous background characters from the game he had destroyed. Recoiling in terror, I leaned close to his ear and whispered, "Regret it. You can casually hurt them, and they can just as easily hurt you back." My nephew crawled toward me as if seeing a savior, frantically signaling for me to help him. Tears mixed with snot streamed down his plump cheeks, making it impossible for anyone to feel even a shred of sympathy. I shook my head and sighed, repenting now. It's far too late. From the moment you didn't care about destroying my hard work, even felt at ease enjoying everything gained by occupying my resources, you were destined to pay the price for it. Understand? My nephew panicked, crying uncontrollably, yet couldn't make a single sound. Seeing that I couldn't be relied on, he could only desperately crawl towards his father and grandmother. I silently watched as my nephew reached for his father's pant leg. The door was violently kicked open, and the back of his head hit the wall, completely silencing him. 16. The eerie sound vanished, and my brother, unaware of what had happened, excitedly clenched his fist and shouted, "I'm so badass, that filthy thing tried to touch me. And I kicked it away. Damn it, what kind of thing dares to possess me?" But my mother panicked, her intuition telling her this was no good sign. "Where's Jackson, Rain? Have you seen Jackson, Rain? What kind of ghostly act are you pulling here?" Hearing my mom mention my name, my brother belatedly realized, "You're standing right next to him, covering his mouth, aren't you? Don't go scaring people randomly. With so many people here, you're no match." I knew he'd try to frame me, so my voice came from another corner. "Stop talking nonsense. I'm not standing next to him. As for where your son is, I'll kindly tell you. The one you just kicked to death was him." My brother froze for a moment, then started cursing wildly. "What nonsense are you spouting? I was clearly kicking a ghost just now, not my son." I shrugged, 75 degrees clockwise. "Why don't you go touch it and see for yourself? Don't be a coward about what you've done." My mother couldn't believe it and suddenly lunged forward, but her hands only met the cold temperature of the small figure. Overwhelmed, she broke down in uncontrollable sobs. "Jackson, my dear grandson, what on earth is happening?" She finally turned back to my brother, hitting him while wailing, "You've sinned. Save Jackson quickly." My brother took the motionless child from my mother's hands and froze for a few seconds. Anger, resentment, and malice flickered across his face in a twisted mix. He pulled a blade from his pocket and lunged fiercely toward the direction of my voice. "Let's all kill her together. She's the only one who can see here. It must be her doing. My son didn't die for nothing." killing her is the only way to break this curse, to be honest. He probably had his guard up the moment I spoke. His ambush was swift and precise. The blade slashed down, splashing warm liquid all over him. My brother casually wiped it away and shouted fervently, "So what if you killed my son?" In the end, I still won this game. I sighed and said, "Unfortunately, this isn't some so-called game. It's stark reality. You always said I couldn't tell them apart. But now it's your turn to confuse them." My brother widened his eyes in disbelief. He was certain that the earlier slash had severed my artery, yet I could still speak perfectly fine. His voice was filled with fear and shock as he staggered back several steps. A ghost, run." He grabbed my elderly mother and used her as a human shield, pushing her forward. Already on the verge of collapsing from crying, she fell headfirst from his shove. She finally found the heart to scold this eldest son she doted on, wailing hysterically, "I've birthed a cursed demon come to collect my debt. I deserve to die. I truly deserve to die." She knelt facing my direction and kowtowed several times with loud thuds, banging her forehead until it bled. "Rain, if you have any mercy left, please save Jackson. He's just a child, innocent and guiltless. Have some compassion and let him go." I spoke calmly. "Mom, first of all, I didn't kill anyone. It was your son who kicked your precious grandson to death. Secondly, where was his mercy when he was slaughtering the NPCs in my game account? This is all karma, what he deserves." My mother grew frantic. "How can you compare real people to a game? How can you be so heartless? So what if he killed your NPCs? If Jackson enjoyed killing them for fun, let him play." She didn't notice that after these words, the already cold hospital air grew even chillier, sending shivers down one's spine. I laughed. "He enjoys killing for fun. But does he realize that the executioners of these 10 plagues are the very NPCs he's been slaughtering? Have you forgotten that the 10th plague is called the death of the firstborn?" My mother's eyes widened instantly. She suddenly realized she could see again, only to witness a horrifying scene. She watched helplessly as I jumped down from an NPC's shoulder. The tall NPC knelt before me, bowing to kiss the back of my hand while hoarsely murmuring the pronunciation of "rain." My mother staggered back a few steps, her legs giving way beneath her. "It's you, these monsters obey you. The game you said would become reality. It's all true, the firstborn's calamity, then your brother and father, they must also." Watching her expression of utter regret, I found it amusing. "Of course it's true, the calamity of darkness means eternal days without light, where people gradually descend into despair amidst this chaos until they go mad and perish. Only in their final moments do they gain the ability to see this world clearly one last time. When I encountered this disaster in the game, I died repeatedly, restarting my save file again and again, just to save both myself and the NPCs. Why should the person who destroyed everything so easily obtain the life I fought so hard to preserve?" My mother no longer had time to care about what happened to her nephew. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "If you can only see before death, then why can I see now?" Her words were interrupted as one of the NPCs approached her. I softly uttered the final sentence, "Because I show no mercy to those who try to kill me." 17. My brother was covered in NPC blood, and skin ulceration was inevitable. He couldn't run far. Moreover, in this pitch-black darkness without a single ray of light, even if he could leave the hospital, he wouldn't be able to hide for long. He must have heard the conversation between my mother and me just now, which also made him realize he'd made a fatal mistake. The 10 disasters don't necessarily occur in sequential order, they might appear simultaneously. He had been careless, but this also means that as long as we survive this calamity, the disasters will be completely over. Ignoring his injuries, my brother stumbled forward, groping his way through the darkness. "I'll get through this. That bitch Rain deserves to die. Once this disaster is over, I'll kill her first. Letting him die like this is so boring." I scoffed at his cowardly, pent-up frustration. "How's the gift for him coming along?" The NPC beside me tilted its head. Rain's words, we will remember, and do well." In the darkness, the sound of chewing was everywhere. My brother thought he was hiding well, but he hasn't been discovered yet. He thought everyone would avoid it like he did, but he didn't expect to be cornered by a group of people at the alley entrance. We can't let this person die so easily. We must make him wish he were dead. The words they were shouting were exactly what I had in mind. These armed people were the family members of the boy who died because my brother stole water supplies, people he had long forgotten in some corner of his memory. After I sent the evidence to the other party, they were devastated and rushed over overnight, determined to make my brother pay with his life. It was you who stole my child's water source. Don't even think about living peacefully. Every day I greet the NPCs inside, and for those without names, I've given them code names, equals backslash, backslash. He kept wailing, backslash, isn't all this Rain's doing? How can you guys see anything clearly? This isn't fair, backslash. He didn't know that, apart from gaining the ability to see before death, those who had committed no evil during the previous disasters could also see in this darkness. It was his own wicked deeds that pushed him completely onto the path of no return. As my brother lay dying, I approached him and asked, "Do you regret it?" Hearing my voice, my brother clung to me desperately as if I were his lifeline. "Rain, make them stop right now. They're committing murder. I won't hold Jackson's matter against you anymore. Just save me." He was frantic, but I remained completely calm, saying slowly, "How about trading it for 10 million now, willing to make the deal?" At this life or death moment, my brother couldn't afford to hesitate anymore. He blurted out desperately, trying to move me, "Deal, deal, deal. The old folks' savings books and property deeds are all in my room's wardrobe drawer, and I know the bank card pin too. It's XXXXXX. That's more than enough for 10 million, originally meant for me. I'll give it all to you now. Just save your brother." The areas where he was splattered by the NPC's blood began to fester and ooze pus, making his beating even more unbearable. Seeing that I made no move to stop it, he panicked completely. "Rain, I've given you everything. Don't break your promise, or may lightning strike you down and you die a horrible death." "Don't worry, the lightning would strike you first." I noted down the password and smiled. "Before, I told you to change it, but you refused to, even if it killed you. Now that the opportunity's gone, it's gone. You made your own choice. Who can you blame?" I watched helplessly as he flew into a rage, only to weakly spit out his last mouthful of blood before going completely still. The family spat one last mouthful of contempt, cursed, "Serves you right," through gritted teeth, then left supporting the victim's portrait. Eventually an NPC cleaned up the scene, approaching to dissolve him completely into nothingness with viscous fluid. After finishing the chewing, it complained to me pitifully, "Taste bad, next time, throw away." I reached out to ruffle his hair, watching as the darkness finally dissipated. Sunlight breaking through the clouds illuminates the ravaged land as if giving it new life. "Don't worry, there won't be a next time." I pulled out the game console from my pocket and gave it a shake. "Now, let's begin the restoration work for post-disaster reconstruction." The end. Story 2. On the day my son turned 1 month old, the extreme cold apocalypse descended.
Oh, there's
The
2
sudden
stories in
drop
this
in
one.
temperature claimed many lives, and the entire city was nearly submerged in thick snow. My
Well, I
husband's
guess we'll
family used
finish.
my son to blackmail me, forcing me to go out and search for supplies. Eventually, I froze to death by the roadside. In my final moments, I used my last breath to call my husband, begging him to save me, but he coldly refused. "My wife, just go in peace. I'll burn some extra paper money for you," he said. It was only after my death that I found out the truth. On the day I gave birth, my sister had switched her healthy child with my stillborn, and the father of my sister's child was my own husband. That's when I realized, from the beginning, both families had been deceiving me. They used an illegitimate child to bind me, making me willingly toil and selflessly give. When I opened my eyes again, I was back 1 month before giving birth. "Doctor, help me, I want to induce labor." Looking at my abdomen, stretched and strained by pregnancy marks, the doctor frowned deeply. "Sabina, you're only a month away from full term. I really wouldn't recommend induction at this stage." Seeing that I didn't respond, he continued, "You need to understand, inducing labor this late in pregnancy can cause significant harm to your body, not just tearing but possibly even requiring an episiotomy." "You, doctor," I interrupted him, looking earnestly into his eyes. "I feel like the child has already died." "What? That's impossible," the doctor exclaimed, disbelief written all over his face. Regaining his composure, he immediately arranged an ultrasound for me. Sure enough, The ultrasound results showed severe umbilical cord entanglement around the neck and insufficient amniotic fluid. The baby had suffocated, the national medical system was interconnected, and the doctor quickly pulled up all my previous medical records. But soon, he looked at the computer screen, puzzled. Last month during your prenatal checkup.
They're bigger, they're better, they're sour, Shakalicious. XL gummies, XL fun.
The baby already had the umbilical cord wrapped around its neck 3 times. At that time, we advised your husband to have you hospitalized for a cesarean section. Why did you, even though I was mentally prepared? Hearing these words from the doctor still tore at my heart. In my previous life, my sister Sabina and I were pregnant around the same time. Sabina was unmarried and pregnant, and she never mentioned who the father of the child was. My husband, Bert, citing the need to maintain the mental health of pregnant women, never let me contact the doctor directly. Any issues were communicated through him and the doctor. Because I couldn't communicate with the doctor directly, we argued countless times. But whether it was my mother-in-law or my own parents, they all sided with him, speaking well of him, after several tugs of war. I believed his nonsense about direct communication with doctors making pregnant women anxious and even at risk of postpartum depression. On the day of delivery, Sabina and I broke our waters almost simultaneously. We went to the hospital one after the other. I had a cesarean section and gave birth to a healthy 8-pound boy, while Sabina gave birth to a stillborn. After holding the full-month celebration for my son at the maternity center, I was brought back home. Little did I know. As soon as I returned home, the extreme cold apocalypse struck. The extreme cold swiftly turned the vast land into a cold ice cellar. Even with the heating running at full capacity, the temperature dial frantically jumped to the highest mark. But it was all in vain. Any trace of warmth was instantly swallowed by the cold. On the streets where people once bustled, only the frozen corpses of stray animals remained, eternally sleeping in the cold, becoming the first victims of the apocalypse. However, under the icy snow, more lethal than the cold was the scarcity of supplies. On the 3rd day of the extreme cold apocalypse, Bert and his son showed their true colors, forcing me to go out and look for supplies. When I refused, Bert took his son to the window, threatening to throw the child to his death. My son was a piece of my own flesh. After carrying him for 10 months and giving birth to him, how could I just watch him be thrown to death? Thus, having just finished my confinement period, I had no choice but to drag my frail body out in search of supplies. The moment I stepped out of the house, the piercing cold wind overwhelmed me instantly. My legs felt as if they were filled with lead, struggling to lift and then fall back down into the thick snow, leaving an uneven trail behind. As the cold wind blew, I instinctively wrapped my clothes tighter around me, the chill penetrating to my marrow, as if it wanted to strip away the last bit of warmth within me. Eventually, I collapsed by the roadside from exhaustion and was frozen to death. Before dying, I managed to call Bert, "Husband, for all the years of our marriage, please come out and save me, bring me back. I'm only 100 meters from our community, you can see me," I pleaded. There was a long silence on the other end of the phone before Bert's indifferent voice came through. "I can't go outside. It's too dangerous." Filled with despair, I said, "How can you do this? I'm your wife. And you're just going to watch me freeze to death." "Wife, life and death are predestined. You can't blame me. Go in peace. I will burn more paper money for you," he said coldly. Before I could respond, he hung up the phone. Indeed, I couldn't blame him. If there was anyone to blame, it was myself for not seeing Bert's true nature before marrying such a beast in human clothing. I tried to move towards home, but my legs had lost all
I've
feeling
added
from the
more
cold.
clothing.
The air was filled with heavy snow, seeming to bury my last hopes. I opened my mouth, and the cold wind mixed with snowflakes rushed in. My heart was full of concern for my son, and my tears froze instantly in my eyes. As my consciousness faded, I watched the blizzard swirl
As far
around
as
me.
I know, I've
Past
not
warm
even been
memories
sick.
flashed before my eyes. And then I slowly fell, my body blending with the snow, the cold devouring my last bit of warmth. After my death, my spirit drifted back to my home. That was when I realized everything had been a plot. Bert had been involved with Sabina all along. The so-called lack of supplies, insisting I go out to find them, was actually about me searching for supplies for 5 adults. Not just Bert and his mother, but also Sabina and my own parents. My parents had known about Bert and Sabina Switching the child to force me to go out and look for supplies was also their doing. I couldn't understand why. Being their daughter as well, I was treated so differently. If they had just honestly told me about the complications with the umbilical cord and the low amniotic fluid, I would have opted for a cesarean section immediately. Then, my child might not have died. They were all murderers. To make way for Sabina's child, they cruelly sacrificed my own, and I, for this illegitimate child, searched for supplies in the extreme cold and blizzard, only to freeze to death by the roadside. I was manipulated by my parents and Sabina before marriage, and after marrying, I was further coerced by Bert and his mother. Reflecting on my life, it feels like a joke. I was merely a tool for all of them. Fortunately, fate gave me a second chance at life. This time, I want to see how these two families manage to live their comfortable, dependent lives in the apocalypse without me. Their easy mark. After confirming the diagnosis, the doctor immediately arranged for me to have an abortion.
Ugh, that gum's boring. A cube? Fancy.
Really?
Flavor crystals? Well, make it fancier. Well, now it's too fancy. Perfect amount of fancy. Icebreaker. Ooh, fancy.
From the doctor, I learned that I was expecting a daughter. However, Bert had always told me our child was going to be a son. Clearly, he had premeditated plans. Perhaps they never intended for the daughter in my womb to be born smoothly. What he wanted was the son in Sabina's womb who could carry on the family lineage. The anesthesia worked quickly, and when I opened my eyes again, I was already in the hospital ward. Upon retrieving my phone from the nurse, I turned it on only to be bombarded with dozens of missed calls. From Bert, my parents, and Sabina. I hadn't informed anyone about the abortion. None of them knew where I had gone. Unable to reach me, they were obviously anxious. After all, I was supposed to give birth in a month, and any mishap could disrupt their plans. As I was lost in thought staring at my phone, another call came through. I thought for a moment and then answered the call. Hearing my voice, Bert breathed a sigh of relief.
Is she talking
Where are
about an
you,
abortion
honey? Your
or like
phone
an
was off
actual
suddenly.
cesarean?
I thought something had happened to
Because a
you.
month
Are
out
you
from
okay?
birth,
How's our son doing? You know, you're the most important
they
person
can
in
be
our
born.
family right
Hi,
now.
Maggie.
Nothing can go wrong. Where are you now? Send me the address, and I'll drive over to pick you up. Bert's concern seemed caring on the surface, but it was clear he was more worried about the child in my womb. I felt nothing but hatred for this despicable man. But having just undergone an abortion and soon needing a procedure to clean the womb, I would be physically weak for a while. During this time, as my spouse and with my parents' support, Bert would undoubtedly have the authority to do whatever he wanted with me. Considering various factors, I chose not to confront him directly at this moment but to play along for now. Honey, I'm at the hospital. Come quickly. Our son is gone. What are you talking about? Honey, what happened to our son? On the phone, Bert's volume surged as he pressed me to explain clearly, but I just cried, unable to provide any substantial information. Frustrated and annoyed, Bert eventually hung up in a huff. There was no need to pretend anymore. I wiped away my tears and lay in the hospital bed checking the balance in my bank account. Both Bert and I graduated from prestigious universities and joined a Fortune 500 company right after graduation, even though the
No.
market is down. Our
No.
combined monthly salaries still amounted to $50,000.
Yes, I love
In
you,
most
but you
families,
cannot
the
sit
wife
on my
manages
shoulder.
the
You look too
finances,
big.
but in our case, Bert controlled both of our salary cards. Initially, I will also inquire about the flow of funds. However, whenever I bring it up, Bert loses his temper and claims that if I don't trust him, there's no point in continuing our marriage. Even my in-laws and parents think I'm being unreasonable. For the sake of peace at home, I've had to swallow my pride and stop asking about it. Looking back now, I feel like my mind was filled with mush. I failed to see such obvious signs of trouble. If he had nothing to hide, why would checking the accounts be an issue? I suspect Bert has spent a significant amount of our joint assets on Sabina. That's probably why he's afraid to let me see them, fearing I'll notice something amiss. I still have a bank card from when I enrolled in university to pay tuition fees. It has 100,000 yuan, which I saved from my part-time job. I've never touched this money, and now it's come in handy. Before long, a severe ice age will arrive. With this money, I can buy enough supplies to keep warm and safely spend my days in a country cottage. A few hours later, I met Bert. Though I had been reborn not long after dying in my previous life, seeing this scoundrel again felt surreal. Bert didn't come alone. Behind him were my malicious mother-in-law and my biased parents. Even Sabina appeared, visibly pregnant and distressed, upon seeing me. Instead of asking about my health, they immediately demanded to know why I had aborted our son. Had I not known the truth from my previous life, their righteous accusations might have made me feel genuinely guilty and at their mercy. This group of people is utterly shameless. Forcibly suppressing my anger, I covered my face, crying and choking out. I didn't want to, that was my child. After the checkup at the hospital, they found the baby had a severe nuchal cord and low amniotic fluid. I had no choice but to opt for an induced abortion. Husband, what's really going on? Didn't the doctors say everything was fine before? I threw the question at Bert, curious to see how he would wriggle out of this one. As expected, Bert's face changed immediately upon my inquiry. Seeing Bert struggling to respond, my mother-in-law rushed over, her face red with anger, and yelled at me, "You have the nerve to ask your husband? You're the mother, the child was in your womb, shouldn't you be responsible when something goes wrong? I've always said you were a jinx, and others didn't believe me. Now, it seems I was right. My grandson was just a month away from being born, and you aborted him. I should kill you for this." My mother-in-law unloaded on me, probably thinking that since I had just undergone an abortion and lost a child, I was in a vulnerable mental state and unable to argue back, but I wasn't going to just comply with her wishes. With tears in my eyes, I responded, "Because I am the child's mother, I understand the situation better. No, I..."
If patients use Pronamel clinical enamel strand, it will actually help to protect the enamel for a lifetime.
I have to ask the doctors who examined me
Seriously?
before. It must be their lack of skill that killed my child. Yes, I need to report them to the media and expose them. Saying this, I pretended to be eager to get out of bed. As I expected, Bert immediately stopped me. He was the one with a guilty conscience. If I really went public with a scandal involving a doctor, then he would be the one condemned by everyone. No one is aware that a severe ice age apocalypse is on the horizon. Bert still needs to worry about his reputation. Otherwise, if the matter is blown up and reaches the company, he would definitely be fired. "Rose, you're in such poor health. You need to rest and recuperate in bed," he said to me, feigning sadness and affection. "It's okay that we lost the baby. The most important thing is that you're still here. As long as you're okay, I'm relieved. I'm not a goldfish with a 3-second memory." I haven't forgotten the fierce and aggressive way Bert questioned me when he entered the hospital room, but I don't want to fall out with him right now, so I didn't expose his act. Instead, I weakly let him hold me and murmured, "Mom was right, it was my fault, but I didn't communicate well with the doctor during the pregnancy. No, I still feel there's a problem. I need to see the doctor." Saying this, I started to feel uneasy again in Bert's arms. Despite everything, he couldn't care less about anyone else and shouted at his mother, "Mom, you're a woman too. Can't you show a little empathy for Rose?" My mother-in-law usually dotes on her son the most, but this time, unusually, she started arguing back at Bert. "Did I say something wrong? If it's really that bad, let the in-laws judge." Saying this, she turned her head towards my parents standing at the door. Following her gaze, I immediately noticed Sabina's malicious stare. It seemed that she was provoked by the intimate gestures between me and Bert. Clenching her fists tightly, I remember Sabina has a habit of getting manicures. Doesn't clenching her fists like that hurt? My hatred for this good sister of mine deepened, to be precise. Compared to Bert and his mother, I despise Sabina and my parents more for pushing me into this abyss. Sabina is my older sister. I remember when we were kids, our parents were busy with work, and I was always the one taking care of her. When I was an intern, my monthly salary was only $2,000, and rent and utilities were significant expenses. But whenever Sabina asked to borrow money, whether I had it or not, I would find a way to give it to her. Even if it meant starving at the end of the month, surviving on plain buns and pickles, I never complained. Morally and emotionally, I have done more than enough for this sister. But how did she repay me? Her own sister. She slept with my husband and got pregnant with his child. And then there's my parents. They always told me that although my sister is only 2 years older than me, she has endured more hardships. So I should be considerate and think of her first. Thus, I worked during every school break in high school and college to pay for my tuition. Moreover, after I started earning a stable income, although I didn't live at home, I still gave them 1,000 yuan each month for living expenses. During holidays, I provided them with gifts like red packets, tobacco, and gold, never missing a thing. Neighbors praised me as a model daughter. In contrast, after graduating from college, Sabina neither worked nor pursued further studies, staying at home claiming to be a full-time daughter and keeping company with the family, but they have always favored her, letting me suffer the injustices. Indeed, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, thinking about how they knew Sabina had destroyed my marriage and hurt my family, yet still implicitly allowed it all to happen, fills me with resentment. She built the happiness of her eldest daughter on the pain of her youngest, completely ignoring the whole process. It sent chills down my spine. It was as if I wasn't their daughter, but merely a tool to be sacrificed at any moment. When faced with my mother-in-law's questions, my parents, as usual, put on a pleasing smile and agreed, "You're absolutely right." Then, they put away their smiles and stared at me sternly. "How could you consider abortion without discussing such a major decision with us? Do you even consider us your elders anymore? When will you ever be as sensible as your sister?" Hearing my parents twist the truth, I felt strangely emotionless inside. Perhaps having been through death once, I had long since given up any hope for them. Without hope, naturally, there was no pain. Still, I pretended to be hurt and pointed at Sabina. "Sensible? Your definition of sensible is her getting pregnant before marriage and refusing to say who the father is. You always favored her, and now, when I've just lost my child and am at my most vulnerable, you still use filial piety to pressure me." The more I spoke, the angrier I became. "Fine, since you look down on me so much, take Sabina and the bastard in her womb and get out. Don't ever acknowledge me as your daughter again." As soon as I said the word bastard, the faces of others in the room fell. After all, they all knew whose child was in Sabina's womb. Even Bert froze. But that wasn't surprising. After all, if the child in Sabina's womb was a bastard, then Bert, the biological father, was nothing but a beast. My mother-in-law, unable to contain herself, rushed over to slap me.
Today on the Legends of L'Oreal, the infallible setting mystery. How did this reporter stay so fresh? Was it the transfer resistant and waterproof up to 36-hour wear? We may never know. L'Oreal Paris 3-second setting mist. Get infallible.
Luckily, Bert was quick to stop her. To avoid raising my suspicions, he quickly ushered everyone else out of the room. Having broken ties with my parents, I was actually relieved. It spared me from their constant moral high ground and accusations under the guise of filial piety. In the following days, everyone disappeared. I knew they must be figuring out how to deal with the child in Sabina's womb. After all, this time the stillbirth in my womb was aborted early. They couldn't just switch it with another. Naturally, they couldn't give that illegitimate child a legitimate identity anymore, and they still had to consider my presence. After all, Bert's mere affair was one thing, but his affair being with Sabina, if I made a fuss, it would surely attract attention on the internet. Both families, selfish as they were, still cared about their reputations and wouldn't just give up and let others criticize them. While keeping an eye on Bert's actions, I also completed my discharge from the hospital. The doctor still recommended that I stay in the hospital for a while longer to see how my body recovers, but I knew I couldn't wait that long. The temperature dropped day by day, and the hospital saw an influx of patients with colds and fevers due to the sudden weather change. They looked haggard and coughed incessantly. Nobody yet realized that a severe cold apocalypse was approaching. I thought about warning others, but every time I tried to speak, it was as if my mouth was sealed, unable to utter a word. To others, I appeared to be making a fuss. It seemed I could only change my own fate, not the outcome of the impending severe cold apocalypse. After leaving the hospital,
Interesting detail.
I bought a train ticket to my rural hometown. My hometown was in Phoenix Mountain, which had only been accessible by road 10 years ago. I had to take a train to the county town and then a 2-hour tricycle ride to the village. However, the advantage of being remote was the sparse population. Even with a few households, they were far apart from each other. The house back in my hometown was built by my grandparents. When I was a child, my parents, busy with work and taking care of Sabina, left me to live with my grandparents in the countryside, turning me into a bona fide wild child. I sometimes think that maybe because I wasn't raised directly by them, I wasn't their favorite. But now, none of that matters anymore. Our house was at the southernmost part of the mountain, and even during the coldest winters, It was a few degrees warmer than other places. Originally built to store miscellaneous items and for pickling vegetables, my grandparents had dug a cellar beneath the house. To keep out rats, the cellar was dug very deep, requiring several minutes just to climb down. As a child, I used to follow my grandparents down to the cellar, which was not only warm in the winter and cool in the summer but also well insulated. After the extreme cold apocalypse hit, temperatures plummeted to minus 60 degrees. Even with the heater on, the cold was relentless. Fortunately, I had the cellar. As long as I hid there, I could escape the harsh external cold. Dragging my still recovering body, I rented a truck specifically for this purpose. The truck struggled along the empty, frost-covered roads, making a dull, creaking sound. Wrapped in a thick coat, my scarf nearly covering my entire face, leaving only my eyes to vigilantly scan outside the window. Arriving at the market, it was a shadow of its former bustling self. The stalls were sparse, and supplies were extremely scarce. I moved between the few stalls, carefully selecting essential living and cold weather supplies. The first thing that caught my eye was the thick blankets. I picked several that were soft and had excellent insulation, thinking they would add an extra layer of warmth on the cellar bed. Next, I spotted some large capacity hand and foot warmers, which I immediately grabbed. For food, I bought a large amount of high-calorie canned goods, meat, fish, and fruit. I also picked up some durable dried goods like black fungus, mushrooms, and vermicelli. As for drinking water, I bought several large jugs of purified water. Although the cold weather made it easy for water to freeze, I could store them near the fireplace. When selecting cold weather clothing, I took extra care. Besides the thick cotton clothes I already had, I found several long down jackets, ideally those with high fill power and waterproof, windproof fabric. I also picked out several sets of gloves, hats, and scarves. Shoes were crucial too. I chose 2 pairs of snow boots with non-slip soles and thick inner lining, which felt like stepping on clouds and effectively protected against the cold from the ground. If anyone asked, I'd say it was for a video shoot for children in impoverished mountain areas, since my purchases varied each time and weren't in large quantities. They didn't attract attention. The supplies I bought were enough to last me alone for a year. Soon, I had packed the cellar tightly. Aside from a bed, there was hardly any space left. There was less than a day left until the arrival of the extreme cold apocalypse. At that moment, I remembered the various supplies I had stored at home. Due to the previous pandemic, I had specifically bought several boxes of instant noodles and snail noodle soup. If rationed carefully, they would be enough to last a week. In the previous life, I didn't need to go out searching for supplies so urgently, but Bert, always cautious, had hidden most of the household's reserves. I only found out after my death that he did all this for Sabina and my parents. Bert had rented an apartment right above ours for them a long time ago. Every time I went out to scavenge for supplies, Bert would take food upstairs to Sabina and them. Thinking about all this, the hatred in my heart surged again. I made a video call to my mother-in-law, pretending to inquire if the instant noodles at home were still there. Is it expired? If it's not expired, please don't throw it away. I still want to eat it when I get back. I know my mother-in-law has never really liked me, to be precise. She looks down on me. She thinks the junk food I hoard makes me look miserably poor. Every time I drag boxes of parcels home, she slams the door and retreats to her bedroom. This time, just to spite me, she blatantly lied, claiming that all the snacks I bought were expired. Then, on a video call, she threw all the food into a big garbage bag and dumped it into the recycling bin downstairs. Rose, don't take it the wrong way, but I think it's because you always eat these junk foods that you ruined your health and had a miscarriage. When you come back from the hospital this time, I'll find you a traditional Chinese medicine doctor to properly nourish your body. A slight smile appeared on her lips as if she remembered something, and it looked utterly creepy. I'm not a fool. How could I believe her words? You should know that during my hospital stay, not a single person came to take care of me. Even Bert, using the excuse of being too busy with work, couldn't make it. He claims his love constantly, yet he refuses even to visit me at the hospital. But perhaps it's for the best. I don't have to pretend in front of him, otherwise, I'd be sick every day. After saying all this, my mother-in-law finally remembered to ask when I was coming home. Pretty soon. I'll come back when you're all gone. Looking at the conspicuous black plastic in the green garbage bin, I slightly curled my lips. Even now, my mother-in-law hasn't noticed the peculiar growth quietly emerging behind me. After hanging up the phone, I leaned back as if relieved, collapsing onto the big bed behind me, enjoying the moment's peace before falling deeply asleep. The next day at noon, I was rudely awakened from my sleep by the howling wind and snow outside, rubbing my sleepy eyes. I checked my phone and realized it was already noon. I got up and looked at the surveillance footage outside, watching the heavy snow fluttering down, covering the world in ice overnight. Glancing at the weather forecast, the temperature hit minus 70 degrees straight into my eyes, cold enough to kill most living beings. It was then that people woke up as if from a dream, realizing that the extreme cold apocalypse had arrived, and the once familiar warm world had been encased in ice, replaced by endless cold. I brewed a cup of steaming hot tea, the fragrance of the tea wafting through the cellar. Then, I started to prepare a small hot pot. Just as I was about to enjoy my meal, a video call notification popped up on my phone screen. I glanced sideways and clearly saw the name, Bert, displayed. As soon as the call connected, he immediately asked anxiously, "Rose, where are you now? The doctor said you had already been discharged. Why didn't you tell us? The TV said the extreme cold apocalypse has come. Come home quickly. We need to be together as a family." He stared intently at me, spotting the hot tea and hot pot in front of me, and was momentarily stunned. The next second, he licked his lips and finally revealed his true intentions. "When you come back."
Now at Verizon, we have some big news for your peace of mind. For all our customers, existing and new, we're locking in low prices for 3 years guaranteed on My Plan and My Home. That's future you peace of mind. And everyone can save on a brand new phone on My Plan when you trade in any phone from one of our top brands. That's new phone.
Bring some food and drink with you. We've run out at home. After marrying Bert, all the household responsibilities fell on me. Even shopping for groceries, a trivial task, was left to me. I've been in charge of everything all along. Even after I got pregnant, I still had to frequently use my phone to order groceries online to be delivered to our home. I've been staying in the hospital lately, too busy to attend to minor household matters. I presume they must have nearly depleted everything in the refrigerator by now. No wonder Bert was still in the mood to ask when I would return home as Sabina's due date approached. I raised an eyebrow. "By the way, why don't you just let me take care of Sabina's child too while you're at it?" Now, with the harsh end times upon us, I'm hiding in a cellar deep in the mountains, hundreds of kilometers away from Bert. Unless he can trace me through the internet, there's no way we can meet. Since we can't see each other, I don't need to worry about any danger Bert might bring, and I'm free to say whatever I want. Bert's face suddenly changed. "Rose, what do you mean by that? We're at this point now. There's no need to play dumb." While I was talking to Bert on the phone, I picked up the tablet from the bed and opened the surveillance software. I had installed this surveillance system when I was pregnant. I didn't expect it to come in handy now. Turning on the surveillance, I instantly saw 5 people sitting in the living room, surprisingly unified. They were still able to stay together at this time, probably not expecting the surveillance. Bert was still being stubborn. "Honey, your sister and I are innocent. Don't slander me. I can swear to you, if I am unfaithful, let lightning strike me. Let me die a horrible death. Is that good enough? Come back soon. We're starving." A tree without bark will surely die. A person without shame is invincible. In front of others, Bert dared to make such a vicious oath, which was quite an eye-opener for me. I didn't want to beat around the bush with him and straightforwardly said, "Bert, do you really think I don't know that Sabina's child is yours? You all have been hiding it from me, expecting me to be your lifelong beast of burden for free. Well, dream on. And you expect me to bring you food. Don't even think about it. What makes you think you deserve it?" At these words, my father was so angry he began stomping his feet. "You ungrateful girl. Do you want to starve your mother and me? I'm telling you, come back here and buy all the food you can on the way. If not, your mother and I will act as if we don't have a daughter like you and cut ties with you." All my life, my father had a temper, and I was no stranger to being hit, but every time after he hit me, my mother would cry next to me, sobbingly telling me that deep down, my father loved me. Before my tragic death in my previous life, I had always brainwashed myself to believe that, but now, having already died once, I should be wiser. Even if I was once foolish and naive, the truth is, my father simply disdains me. He doesn't like me as his daughter, so no matter what I do, it never pleases him. Even if I do well, it's taken for granted in his eyes. But if anything is less than perfect, he spares no effort in criticizing me. However, he can only act this way because he relies on my affection for them, but this affection has long evaporated along with their bias. With a smirk, I retorted, "Now you remember you have a daughter like me, huh? Is our eldest daughter not of any use?" he asked. "Can't she go out and buy food for you? It's too cold outside, and your sister is pregnant. What if something happens to her?" My mother's voice timely interjected from the side. Hearing her words, I couldn't help but laugh. So they knew it was cold outside too, but what about me? Am I some kind of superhero, immune to the extreme cold? I had just had a miscarriage. In my past life, they consumed the supplies I left behind without a single thought for me, never asking if I was scared of dying. They were the ones who killed the me who had once devoted everything to them. This life. They have woven their own trap. I didn't respond to my mom but changed the subject. By the way, I remember stocking up on plenty of instant food at home. If you're hungry, why don't you just eat those? Bert immediately perked up, asking me where I had put the stuff. Watching the silent, speechless mother-in-law on the monitor, I suddenly stopped talking. Now, it was everyone else's turn to panic. Even Sabina came running out, pleading with me, "Rose, this is a matter of life and death. There are so many of us in the family. Please don't hold grudges now. You're so kind. I believe you won't just stand by and watch us die, right?" Just hearing Sabina's voice made me feel nauseous, but faced with her sincere plea, I nodded. "You're right, people should be kind." However, I suddenly remembered that when I called Mom yesterday to ask if any of that food had expired, she had thrown out all those boxes of instant noodles, vermicelli, dried fruits, potato chips, and bread. Bert, life and death are predestined. You can't blame me for this.
Have you ever played those fake games you see in the ads where you can get +1,
Oh,
-2?
God.
It never plays like the actual ad. It always shows those little blue guys trying to get
Wait,
upgrades and defeat the boss.
where did my
Bro, you
phone fall
downloaded the
to?
wrong one. You need to click the link below and download Top War.
Okay, let's see what this is about. Okay, we just gotta get this
There it
guy
is.
out of his tank. Nice. Okay, we can go ahead and get this guy first. Perfect. Now we're upgraded. We can take down the little dudes. We still need to get our friend out of the...
I'll burn some extra paper money for you. After that, I hung up the phone. I then turned on the sound of the surveillance, only to hear everyone hysterically yelling at the mother-in-law. They blamed her for losing the supplies, forcing her to go downstairs in the blizzard to retrieve them. But our neighborhood's garbage bins are cleared by sanitation workers every 2 hours. It had been a night since then. The items were long gone, and there was no way she could retrieve them. But the others didn't care. They blamed the mother-in-law for their loss, forcing her to go out into the storm. Throughout the ordeal, no one spoke a word, but their actions said everything. In Bert's eyes, his own life was clearly more important than his mother's. A middle-aged woman who had never suffered in this way, she cried and screamed in the stairwell, begging Bert to let her in. Unfortunately, Bert didn't agree. With no other choice, the mother-in-law tentatively stepped out of the residential area. 3 hours later, she still hadn't appeared on the surveillance footage. Unsurprisingly, she probably died out there. The lack of supplies made everyone unwilling to be the one sacrificed, and the atmosphere inside the room instantly became tense, eventually escalating into a chaotic brawl. Shouts and curses intertwined. In the chaos, Sabina was pushed and lost her balance, her abdomen harshly hitting the corner of the table. The sudden severe impact caused her to bleed profusely, the stark red spreading in the cold air. A shocking sight. Filled with terror, Sabina screamed desperately, begging everyone present. She begged them to take her to the hospital, appealing to their past friendship. However, Bert just watched coldly, expressionless. Even her own parents chose to remain indifferent. In the end, Sabina bled to death. Perhaps driven by a twisted desire to avenge his biological daughter, my father, in a fit of rage, grabbed a knife from the kitchen and charged at Bert, trying to force him to go out and find supplies. But how could a middle-aged man's strength match that of the young and robust Bert? After just a few exchanges, the knife was easily wrestled away from my father by Bert. Perhaps acting on instinctive self-defense, Bert chose to fight back. The gleam of the knife flickered in the dim room, followed by screams. The other 2 living persons in the house, besides him, also fell into pools of blood. In the surveillance footage, I saw Bert dragging the bodies of 3 people slowly into the kitchen, and I could guess his intentions. I couldn't bear to watch any further, not even a glance. With trembling hands and suppressing the nausea in my heart, I extracted everything recorded by the surveillance and sent it to the police. 1 month later, I was awakened from my sleep by a wave of heat. I quickly crawled out of the cellar. I didn't go straight to the surface. Instead, I cautiously peeked out, scanning the outside. The sky was clear. Then, beams of sunlight so dazzling that it was almost blinding hit the windows, refracting into a kaleidoscope of colors. The sun is out. I couldn't help but exclaim softly, a joy of surviving disaster flooding through me. The land, once frozen, began to slowly wake under the gentle caress of the sun. The harsh cold apocalypse had finally come to an end. I lay at the entrance of the cellar, basking in the warm sunlight, feeling a mix of emotions. 3 days later, I received a call from the police station. It turned out that the video I had sent them had caught their attention. Once the cold apocalypse ended, the police acted immediately, apprehending Bert. With multiple lives on his hands, Bert was sentenced to death. He had survived the apocalypse with those 3 bodies. But he couldn't escape the long arm of the law. As a survivor, I inherited the estates of both families. I planned to start a life of traveling far and wide. How wonderful the sun is, shining light into my heart. After surviving this harsh apocalypse, I will live as I please in the days to come, without self-destruction, ready to go mad if necessary. I will live according to my own heart, joyfully and fully.
My God. Thank you. I'm really glad that they have this. You'll know that I'm very excited to try out Etheria Restart, obviously because it has that amazing PvP animations along with PvP and RTA. That's crazy. So they have an RTA shop before E7. That's wild. I cannot believe that Etheria Restart has an RTA shop before Epic 7.
Pretty sure that's the end of that.
Wild to me. You know, this is something that we've been asking for so long, for 6.
It is? Okay. So, I'm ending the stream. That was the last story. So if you're watching this, either now or later in the future, I hope you have a good day, night, week. Stay happy. Stay healthy. And bye-bye. No! Lucky? The lap table is not for you. You're not supposed to walk on that.